What's up, everyone? It's GameFace episode 31, what I like to call the storm before the calm, Matt.
Yeah.
well, yeah, because
Halloween.
Well, Thanksgiving's coming,
Right.
and after today, the industry pretty much shuts down. In fact, the industry now is officially shut down until next Monday.
Pretty much, unless you're Just Cause 3.
Yeah.
It's pretty much over.
There's no, all the sites are done for the week. They're all taking vacation. There's really going to be not a lot of curation going on Sifted over the next couple days, but I will say I'm going to make it up by doing a bunch of live streaming over the next probably 3 or 4 days.
Yeah, we're still here.
Yeah, I'm still going to be here. And I'll be back in here probably tomorrow to do some live streaming. I'm probably going to stream some Xenoblade, which we have very strict restrictions, again, from Nintendo on what we can and cannot stream. It's like 2 pages worth of, like, you can show this, you cannot show that. So it's going to be really hard to just figure out exactly what I can show and what I can't. But yeah, everything's going to be shutting down over the next few days, so you're not going to see a ton of new content on Sifted as far as curation is concerned. That's just the way it is over Thanksgiving. Everybody kind of leaves tonight and then flies home, because most of the people who work in the industry aren't from California.
Right. Most people in LA aren't from LA.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, a lot of people in, San Francisco as well. It's a big city for people moving there from outside. So the industry is about to shut down. This is probably the last thing you're going to see game-related that's live and happening other than streaming gameplay over the next few days. So we are here to do it. We're here to have a special Thanksgiving episode with you Sifters. We're going to answer a ton of your questions at the end of the show today as a kind of a thank you to you guys for supporting us and for showing up tonight, because we realize a lot of people are with their families right now and not watching live streams like ours. So we are going to answer a ton of questions at the end of the show. Gifted launched today, finally, after I talked about it on the show for the last 4 weeks in a row.
Just in time.
Just in time for Black Friday and the whole holiday shopping season. So check it out. I think it works really well. You get really cool email confirmations to let you know that you've bought stuff. The person that you buy it for, you can choose to send them an email, or you can send it to yourself and get the code. Because what happens is when you buy something on Gifted, you just get a code that you put in when you on the registration page.
Someone in the chat just said something interesting. Could you just go get a Japanese version of Xenoblade and just play that with no restrictions?
Yeah, you could.
That's how little sense this makes?
Yeah.
All right.
It is. It's ridiculous. But you wouldn't understand what they're saying anyway.
Yeah.
And I've kind of started Xenoblade, and I wouldn't be able to play this game in Japanese.
So the restrictions are to protect us from being spoiled by the genius of the English localization.
I suppose, yeah.
Right.
It is.
Cool.
I will say this, it is a really complicated game. Like, everything about it. The combat, everything about it is crazy intricate, and, I would not be able to play the Japanese version of this game. But you're absolutely right. They've basically given us embargoes on a game that's been out in Japan for, 2 months.
Or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're actually going to get into a little bit of that topic here in a hot minute on GameFace. We're going to talk about something that happened in the last week with another publication kind of regarding working with publishers and things like that was a little bit ridiculous. But yeah, really excited for the show, really excited for Gifted. Get out there and use it. Buy Gifted for other gamers that you know, your little brother, your big brother who went away to college. Anyone in your family who's a gamer who you want to be on Sifted, buy him a gift certificate. It's better than the stupid Secret Santa stuff you usually get, right?
Yeah.
And it's right in that price range. Usually it's a $20 to $30 price range for a Secret Santa.
Yeah.
So.
And it lasts all year.
Yep, and like I was saying earlier, when you buy something, you basically get a code that you input on the registration page, and you can choose to send that to the person you're giving the gift to, or you can send it to yourself and then just take that code and put it in a card or whatever. So it's pretty flexible. You can do what you want with it. So it took a lot of work to get it to work, and it's up, so let's make some use of it. And with that, let's get to the Big Six. So the biggest story, I think, at least as far as the story that was generating the most conversation on Sifted and on various message boards and things like that, is this week the editor-in-chief of Kotaku came out and basically spilled the beans on something that's been going on behind the scenes. And the funny thing is that no other podcast has touched this. We curate every podcast and we watch every podcast, and we have to go through it and figure out what content it is in it, because we need to tag that podcast to the games that they talk about. So we have to at least skim through and watch or listen to every topic they talk about. No other podcast will touch this. And for obvious reasons for what we're about to talk about. So basically what happened is Kotaku, a couple years ago, pissed off Ubisoft. They leaked some information about Assassin's Creed Unity. And before it was announced and Ubisoft had the chance to go through its marketing plans, because all that stuff's mapped out, Matt.
Oh, yeah.
They have it all planned out. They're like,
To the letter.
This is the day we put out the first information, the Game Informer. This is the day we put out the debut trailer for everybody else. And
anyone who has worked in press and done like news stories or cover stories about stuff like that knows that. And they you have to maneuver around their PR schedule, to fit in your coverage to kind of see what's going to be talked about or what's revealed or whatever. You always have to kind of work your way into that madness.
Right, and so. They broke information about Assassin's Creed Unity. Unity came out, and according to Stephen Totillo, who's the editor-in-chief of Kotaku, things kind of cooled out, and Ubisoft came back around and started working with them again. Well, right around the time that they did, they broke the first information on Assassin's Creed Syndicate, and that was
then called Victory.
Yeah, at that point it's called Victory. And they had some screenshots of the game. It was a pretty significant leak. I was pretty surprised.
Especially because it already happened the year before. It was like you'd think they would have locked that down.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, that was Ubisoft's fault for not locking down that information. So basically at that point, Ubisoft blacklists Kotaku, and they haven't worked with them since. So Syndicate comes out, they didn't get review copies of the game, they're not working with them, they're not letting them interview their developers. They're basically, if they reach out for a comment, they're just blowing them off and not answering at all. And so that was the problem with Ubisoft. Well, then he also shares a story about problems that they've had with Bethesda. And so you probably remember this too, but Kotaku also leaked something for Doom. They were saying the Doom project was having a ton of problems. They were thinking about reworking it, and Bethesda got pissed off about that. And then Kotaku also leaked something about Fallout 4. They had a bunch of information about Fallout 4. According to the article written by Stephen Totillo, he said that they had a lot more information that they didn't share about Fallout 4, including like the story and some of the plot and stuff like that. So basically he's saying, we've been a little prudent with the information that we've been giving in these leaks. We're not giving it all up because we don't want to ruin things for the players or their readers. And so Steven basically was hoping, kind of like the first time with Ubisoft, that all this stuff would just blow over. Eventually the publishers would get over it. And so Fallout 4 comes out. And, his readership is like, hey, where's your review of Fallout 4? Why is it a week later and this review still isn't out? Or why is it day 2? After embargo broke and your review's still not up. And so finally he felt like he had been pushed into a corner to where he needed to explain to his readers and his readership what was going on. And so he writes this really lengthy, I don't know if it's an editorial, but more of like an explanation of what's happening.
A letter from the editor kind of thing.
Yeah, so he had sat on this whole turmoil going on behind the scenes for a year with both Bethesda and Ubisoft, and finally felt the need to explain it to his readership. And so we curated this on Sifted, and I was really shocked to see the response. Like, some people were like, if you're going to report, then report. But a lot of other people looked at it like, what, I don't like what Kotaku does. I feel like they're ruining the surprise for me, and I would rather see these games unveiled at a press conference where there's a whole bunch of hubbub about it, and there's a bunch of pomp and circumstance surrounding it. And my position is that people complain all the time that video game journalists aren't journalists. And they say, you're just an arm of their marketing, or, you're just beholden to the publishers and they have you in their pockets. And then so finally we have a publication who gets real information and actually does some sleuthing, which is never done in this industry from the press. Because most publications just take what they're given and they run with it. And also evidenced by the fact that no one else is talking about this on any podcast, which it's like the biggest topic of the week. So, that's a little shady that no one's willing to talk about it, but they're afraid. They're afraid that Ubisoft and Bethesda is going to do the same thing to them that Kotaku did, that they did to Kotaku. So my perspective is, I went to school for journalism, and, when you go to school for journalism, they teach you to operate the way Kotaku operates. Like, you go out and you hunt for information. If you find it, you run it, provided you haven't created an agreement with any of these people to not run the information. And so,
and it should also be noted that I've not been a tremendous fan of Kotaku in the past, but I think Totillo has really whipped that place into a different thing.
Yeah.
I think he's done a good job with it. So,
well, the initial stuff that happened
so some people I think are kind of reacting to Kotaku like based on their like kind of maybe like their predisposition towards judging Kotaku as what it was like 6, 7, 8 years ago.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too is that the former editor-in-chief, Brian Crescente, was the one who was in charge when the stuff happened with Unity. So this is not all under Steven's watch, so to speak.
But there has been a shift at Kotaku from being kind of like just like sort of a sensationalist blog sort of thing to more of a we're going to report the story.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, they've always broken stuff.
Yeah.
Like, they've always been the sleuths in the industry. They're the ones who actually do go out and dig, and they have pretty good contacts.
And that comes from being, Gawker is a pretty fearless organization when you really look at it.
And a lot of people hate Gawker.
Yeah.
And I don't really read Gawker other than Kotaku, to be honest with you.
I read Kotaku and IO9.
I know some people read Deadspin that are into sports.
I see a lot of Deadspin articles, even though I don't go specifically to Deadspin, but Deadspin does some good stuff.
They break some stuff as well in sports. I mean, it's not just related to their video game coverage.
Mm-hmm.
So, in my opinion, say what you want about some of Kotaku's content. There's no publication that's going to put out content that everybody loves 100%.
Right.
Every publication is going to do something that you don't like, but they have to do that because they're trying to reach everybody. And
yeah.
so
I've never read every article in a newspaper.
Ever, right.
Yeah.
And so, look, there's some content I care about, there's some content you care about, but they
Right.
need to serve both of us. So, inevitably, they're going to publish something that I don't care about, and vice versa. They're going to put out stuff that you don't care about. It's called being a responsible publication, trying to serve your audience.
I'm sure someone wants to read about all those anime figures.
Right. And so say what you want about Kotaku and their content, whether you like them or you hate them or whatever, but in my opinion, the bottom line is they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. They are being real journalists. They are being what a lot of people are complaining the games press isn't. And so here's a case where they're doing their jobs, they're doing exactly what they're supposed to, and the truth of the matter is that it goes against the grain because all these other publications are so petrified of getting cut off from these guys that they do exactly what they're told by the publishers. And so, I was really shocked to see that these people were like, no, I want the manufactured stuff. I don't want the real news. When a large portion of people who frequent these websites complain about that very relationship, the symbiotic relationship that publications have with the publishers. Matt, how do you look at this? Because obviously everyone has a different perspective, and so I'm curious to hear yours.
Well, I'm pretty sure, I hope, that the people that are complaining about that are different from the people who are complaining that they don't break real stories. I think, I don't know, maybe I've been in this too long, but none of it surprises me. It doesn't surprise me at all that they did that. But if you got the story, you run it. If it's not going to damage someone, if it's not going to slander someone,
Well, some people say it does hurt the developers because the developers have worked on this game all this time.
I don't believe that because, Fallout 4's selling fine.
Yeah.
It's doing good.
But Syndicate hasn't sold as well.
No, but I don't think you can lay that at the feet of the Kotaku.
Yeah, I agree.
I think it's and it is. It's number 3. It's okay. It's not what Assassin's Creed Brotherhood was, say.
Right.
But that's what happens when you put a game out every year.
Yeah.
You're going to hit fatigue eventually.
Right.
And Unity, I think, damaged the brand a little bit.
It definitely did.
And so I can see why they got real spiky about messing with their plans for the next game because clearly Victory/Syndicate was kind of the game where they were going to try to put it all back on track, and I think they've succeeded in a lot of ways. But do I think that they should respond to what happened there by cutting Kotaku off? It seems kind of petty to me. I don't feel like any one article or anything like that is going to really. Yeah, especially because I remember that article about Syndicate, and most people are like, "Oh, that's a really cool setting." Yeah. It's just "Oh, maybe this will be good." It's there's a lot of it wasn't like a slam. It wasn't overused tired series is going to Victorian London. It's just it wasn't like a weird. It was just hey,
slant.
People want to know.
There was no slant in it. It was them just reporting what they were told, and as it turns out, it was all right. It was all accurate. The information was good. Their source was good. I think the other thing too that people are
my entire reaction to that story was, oh, cool. That.
Exactly. And I think the other kind of reaction to this is that people feel like Kotaku shouldn't have put this out in the public. That they're trying to say, hey, look at me, look at us. We're the ones who do things the right way, and we're getting punished for it. And how do you feel about that?
They have a point. It can come off as sort of martyrdom, but I would be more sympathetic to that viewpoint if it hadn't been kind of a result of where's your review, where's your review, where's your review, and at some
that could
point,
also be a convenient excuse.
It could, but I read the thing and I didn't feel like it was oh, poor us.
What it read like to me is that they're trying to convince these publishers to work with them. I think they're trying to lay it out there bare so that people would see it and maybe raise an uproar over it because that's what happened with the Unity stuff.
Right.
Or actually, I think it was a PlayStation thing that they had done early. Yeah, it was Sony. Because Sony had went to cut them off because they had broken another story, a leak about some of Sony's games. And Crescente kind of wrote the same thing that Totillo did. and it actually worked. Like, Sony was like, oh crap, because people freaked out, and they're like, oh, I can't believe you're doing this to them. And so Sony did relent and like started working with them again, and I think Totilo is hoping that the same thing will happen here.
It doesn't seem to be.
It does not seem to be at all.
No.
Yeah, because again, like, whereas the last time people were kind of behind them and rallied for them, like, it seems like this time people are like, I don't know, like, I'm surprised at the reaction to it.
I don't know what changed there. Like, I don't really know, like, what the difference would be. You know, I don't have a theory on that, really. I don't know why people would suddenly be deciding, like, okay, maybe I guess everybody's accepted that, you know, gaming press should basically just be like a bunch of like extensions in the marketing departments, and that's that. I don't know, because that's what a lot of it is. You know, you're still dependent on, and there's not that maturity is what I'd call it, that like exists in like the film industry, where it's like, the film critics are still dependent on the movie production, the studios, to let them see the movies ahead of time, into the junkets and the press screenings and stuff, and like. But you can pan like a Paramount picture, and like they're not going to not let you into the next one. Like, that just doesn't exist. Like, it's accepted that, like, there's going to be opinions.
Some critics are not going to like our film.
Yeah, and maybe part of that is because when you work in the movies, your payment bonuses don't depend on the average of all the critics' scores.
You're right.
There's a monetary interest in like the Metacritic score at this point, which is ridiculous. It shouldn't exist.
Completely ridiculous.
And like. Maybe that's part of it. Is like maybe that's why they're so hardline about these plans, is because if this this stuff the critics kind of have them by the balls in that regard. So maybe there's a little animosity in that regard. But I don't have it because like people pan books and albums and movies and stuff, and you never hear about someone getting like unless they're like clearly out for it. Like, you don't hear like Roger Ebert would not be not invited back if he had given a bad review to like a big tentpole picture. Like for a Sony picture, like if he hated Spider-Man 2, he wouldn't have been de-invited to all the Sony Searchlight like indie movies for the rest of the year. It's like it's a weird situation because there's no equivalent in another media industry. You don't get blacklisted for reporting the news.
You want to know what really bothered me the most out of all the reactions I saw is that on Facebook, and we're friends with a lot of industry people on Facebook, and a lot of the people who used to be journalists who have moved on to work with publishers were basically chastising Kotaku and saying, this is the way it is if you don't want to play ball. And I was like disgusted by that, man. I was like, you've completely
very surprised.
Forgotten where you've come from. Like, look, some of the PR people who have been PR people all along jumped into that conversation and were like, yeah, I agree. Well, yeah, of course, you've always worked in PR. But to see some of these journalists were people I respected back when they were journalists, were jumping in there saying, yep, this is why your press is irrelevant now, and this is why we spend all our money on YouTubers. And I get why you spend all your money on YouTubers, because you can buy off their opinion. And so basically they're saying, like...
I can't wait for that story to really come to light one day.
Oh, the truth about it all.
The truth about how that all works.
Oh, yeah. I mean, look, I know enough that it's disgusting. And, like, I don't know all the gritty details, but I know enough to know that there's all kinds of backhanded stuff going on. But, for instance, I went on Game Trailers on one of the last episodes of Bonus Round they ever did, and there was a couple people on the show. We were talking about the new media and YouTubers, and I was talking about how I was skeptical of it and how I felt like there's no checks and balances there, and people were getting away with all kinds of crap and nobody knew about it. And I was like chastised. It was very frustrating for me to sit there as somebody who, again, I hate to say, oh, I went to school for journalism, blah, blah, blah. I'm just saying, like, I was trained to operate this way as a journalist. And so to see all this crap going on, it's insane. Like, I just feel like people who really try to do things the right way in this industry get squeezed out. When something like this happens, where these people are doing their jobs and doing what the hell they're supposed to be doing, and they're getting chastised not only by the fans, which I can kind of understand because they don't get it. They've never went to school for journalism. They don't know what journalists are supposed to do. And truth be told, journalism across the board right now is kind of screwy. I mean, even if you look at places like CNN or whatever, like there's all kinds of weird like infotorial stuff going on and advertorials and like. So I get that, like, the person who's just watching this stuff may not understand how it's supposed to work. But, like I said, seeing former journalists all of a sudden start piling on, like, I was like, really? Like, I was just shocked by it, man.
It's, on one hand, the way a lot of the people you're talking about said it was a little weird to me. Because on one hand, I kind of agree in the sense, like...
I'm assuming you saw the same thing that I did.
I saw the same things, I think. And, but, like, look, what most of what we do or what these outlets do in the game world, it's mostly reviews, it's mostly like preview stuff. It's really consumer reports more than journalism.
Yeah.
So when you get into something that what Kotaku did here, which is journalism, like there are real journalists, like Patrick Klepek really digs and finds stuff. I'd say what Keeley did with the Final Hours of series is real journalism.
Well, that's journalist documentary.
It's documentary work, but it's still kind of like a journalistic sort of pursuit.
Sure.
It's more than just like telling you whether the car runs well,
Right.
And and there's because that's the thing is like I think we're not really breaking the Watergate scandal here. I think you're looking at more of an industry. You're looking at more of a Vanity Fair kind of thing. Like yes, or Entertainment Weekly, where it's like yes, they're reporting news, they got scoops, they've got stories, but it's also sort of in concert with the industry they're reporting on. And so when you get to these things where you start going directly against the wishes of these major companies, I think that gets worked out in most other industries, but maybe this industry doesn't quite have that down yet. That hasn't shaken out. Maybe this will catalyze that to some degree. But I kind of agree with what the people you're talking about said in the sense that, like, look, Kotaku, if you decide that that's how you're going to do it, and I think there's a strong argument for that's how you should do it, this could be a consequence. And you're going to have to live with that. And they have been living with it.
Right.
They have been doing it.
I think that's the other thing, too, that people forget is that Kotaku sat on all this for, like, 2 years.
Yeah.
It's not like they were just, like, all of a sudden, like, knee-jerk reaction, screw these people, I'm going to lambast them in public in one of our articles. Like, they waited for the publishers to try to come around and realize how ridiculous they were being.
And I'm sure, there was part of that where,
even that, though, really, if you're talking about journalism, is not a good practice.
No. But I get why they would say like, okay, well, we'll just tell you what's happening because we're tired of making excuses for why we don't have Fallout. Because if it's Fallout 4, you could be like, well, it's taken us a long time to play. It took you a long time to play it too, and you didn't have it. You're not blacklisted.
Yeah, and I got the copy a week before it came out. I just played it the hell out of it before I reviewed it.
So maybe there was an element of like, here's our chance. But like, hey, after 2 years or whatever, like I can see them wanting to take, hey, if there's a shot at clearing this air a little bit between our relationships with these companies, let's try it.
And the problem is when you have the fans and ex-journalists for that matter, because look, the PR people who run PR for these companies are also friends with these former journalists on Facebook. Mm-hmm. And you better believe they went and read the same stuff that we read.
Yeah.
And so when they see people that were like us, who are now working in PR, and they're saying, no, you're doing the right thing, Bethesda and Ubisoft. Well, then they're like, oh, okay. They're emboldened. And all of a sudden they're like, well, there's no way we're going to kowtow to Kotaku now because ex-journalists are saying that cutting them off is okay, and half of the fans are saying that cutting them off over this is okay, so we have nothing to lose.
The vast majority of people who buy Bethesda and Ubisoft's games don't even know those stories existed.
Yeah.
No,
you're right.
They're not, I'm not trying to say Kotaku is like an inconsequential, like tiny little fish or whatever.
Not at all.
I'm just saying gamers are like that. We're like that. I want to play what I want to play. And while I may have opinions and whatever about what happens in the run up to the release of a game, whatever I think rarely stops me from wanting to play the actual game. And of course the classic example is the Steam screenshot where it's the people in the boycott Modern Warfare 2 Steam group and they're all playing Modern Warfare 2 on the day it comes out. There's a point at which we love games more than we love
doing what's right.
Principles. Yeah, it's just like and I think one of our later subjects in the Big Six gets to a little bit of that.
At
least it will for me. My story on that, but I kind of come down on both sides of this issue. I think Kotaku, if you had that information in your hands and you knew it was correct and you knew it was legit,
you vetted your sources.
You vetted it all. I don't know if I'd be able to resist, publishing that.
Oh, I can tell you right now, if anybody ever gives me that information, we will run it. As soon as it's vetted, we will run it. There will be no hesitation. There will be no thought about what repercussions there are. We will run the information.
And from the other side, if I was, on the Ubi or Bethesda side, I would like to believe that my reaction would be to put my own house in order and prevent those leaks from happening again, rather than publishing the people that simply report on it.
Yeah, another thing that people retort with is well, it didn't hurt the sales of Fallout 4. Well, first of all, it may have hurt the sales of Syndicate. Syndicate's not sold that great. The other thing is you can't look at the sales of something and say it didn't hurt it. So it sold 5 million copies in a week. Well, maybe it would have sold 5.2 million copies in that week. You can't just say because a game does well. And that's the thing I saw from a couple of the people who used to be journalists that had turned to the PR side. They're like, well, not hurting Fallout, so shove on off. We can give our money to the YouTube kids, and it'll turn up.
Well, I think that argument cuts both ways, though. It's like, well, yeah, it didn't hurt Fallout. Like, I mean, you're saying,
but you don't know that.
But they're saying that in the sense like it didn't hurt Fallout to cut Kotaku out of the loop. But it's like, well, like Kotaku reporting that story apparently didn't hurt sales either. So it's like
Right.
that argument doesn't.
No, that's a good point.
Argument works both ways, so it doesn't really solve anything.
And again,
you can't know. Unless you know the alternate timeline sales in which that story never happened.
I mean, Kotaku has. I mean, I don't even know what. I haven't looked at their numbers in a long time, but I mean, they used to have like 10 million uniques a month. Like, if you feel like them not covering your game during the launch window really doesn't have an impact when they have 10 million unique followers going there a month.
And to be honest, when I bought Syndicate, I didn't remember that Kotaku story. The only outcome of that Kotaku story was that I looked forward to that game a couple months more. Frankly, I mean, I was hoping that game was going to be good a couple months earlier than I would have otherwise. And I get the weird one for me are the people that are like, it's spoilers. I don't want to know that until it's presented to me professionally.
That's what I want to bring up next, like kind of more of a lighter angle. Like, how do you feel about the no, I want to see them present it to me instead of like it being given to me by Kotaku in a news story? That
I find that mildly dystopian.
It's a little weird.
That's like some like Blade Runner shit right there. It's like, yes, feed me your corporate wisdom, kind of. I mean, that's super strange.
I think it's like, in my opinion, it's like drinking the Kool-Aid. Like, you're done. Like, you have been so conditioned by these publishers to just ingest it. Don't take a bite of that yet.
But it's also funny that like that, and then I love it when people like get like that. But only official, only like I want to know what official. But then sometimes something like I don't know if anyone saw the teaser poster went up for the new season of Game of Thrones. Yesterday.
It has Jon Snow in it, right?
Yeah, Jon Snow. And everyone's like, oh my God, spoilers. I'm like, it can't be spoilers if the marketing agency says that's what they want to show you.
Yeah.
Like, that's... And so it's like, do you want the official presentation or not?
Yeah.
Like, because apparently sometimes it ruins it.
They don't like that either.
Like, like, maybe we should just bind everyone's eyes and ears until it's time for the thing they like to come out. I don't know. But it's like... But I think it's just... that, like, if someone has any kind of mild problem with something, they're going to complain about it, and the internet lets you complain very efficiently into a large number of ears.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, if I don't have a problem with something like that, am I going to make No, I'm not. I'm just going to move on. Like, it's like, the old adage in the old days of TV was like, for every complaint, assume 100 people feel the same way, and for every like praise, assume 1,000 people feel the same way, because you're much more likely to complain to someone than you are to praise them.
Here's the final angle before we move on of this that we haven't brought up yet, is that what people don't realize, and I don't even know if Steven mentioned this in his story, but when you get blacklisted, it's not just you're not getting review copies, we're not inviting you to our events, we're not going to give you quotes on any story you ask us about. They also cut off all the advertising to that publication. They cut off all the marketing money, all the advertising money. And when you're talking about a site as big as Kotaku, and publishers as big as Ubisoft and Bethesda, who spend hundreds of millions of dollars marketing each game, I mean, you're talking about a loss at Kotaku and Gawker of like millions of dollars.
Yeah, and like I've seen some people kind of say like, well, Ubisoft's a much bigger problem than Bethesda because Ubisoft puts out way more games. Like, but Bethesda
editorially, it's a bigger problem.
Yeah. But also, I think Bethesda's ad campaigns for those games are big.
Yeah.
Like that, that's a big thing to get cut out of. Like that's, I can see why people are very reticent to, wade into this subject because, like, if you're dependent on advertising from them, like, you don't want to piss. And also, like you say, there's a lot of friends in this industry, and you don't want to piss off people that like maybe would expect you to agree with them or disagree with these people or to agree with those people. It's a minefield in ways.
Yeah, it's a very complicated topic that has a lot of different angles to it, and a lot of it has to do with money, which we kind of only brought up there at the end.
What do you think's going to happen?
Nothing.
I
think because of the response to the fans, I think they may have just tacked another year onto their blacklist, to be honest with you. I think it's probably not going to work out the way that Steven had hoped it would, which is a shame. But at the same time, you know what? It's just going to embolden Steven to keep doing what he's been doing.
Yeah.
I mean, they got a lot. It's almost like the amount of traffic that they got when they leaked those stories is so astronomical that it's almost worth like the end result. I'm sure the people who work in marketing at Gawker and sales at Gawker probably don't agree with that because they probably missed a quota here or there on a couple of their quarters because of the lack of marketing and sales money. I hope there's a separation of church and state there so that Stephen Totillo isn't dealing with like the marketing and sales people coming to him being like, dude.
I think considering what some of the other like Gawker sites do, I would think there would have to be.
Yeah, but you don't know how that stuff works if you don't work there. And
I just assume some of the stuff I've read on Deadspin, I'm like, wow, they must really not be beholden to the advertising department.
Yeah, I think you may be right.
But again, who knows if that's the same across each
I'm assuming they would have one blanket editorial policy across all their editorial. That's typically how it works when you're working at a company like that. Like, they're not just going to protect one guy and not protect another guy or one publication and not another. So,
but we don't know for sure.
We don't know for sure. Yeah, I mean, I'm just assuming based upon my experience working in the industry and just, you know.
Yeah, that would make sense. It's just, I think you and I have both learned over the years, never assume the thing that makes sense is actually what's happening.
But yeah, I mean, what I would say to you sifters is, like, seriously think about it. Like, allowing these publishers to control the publications and allowing these publishers to control you, because if you're saying that, like, you side with these with these publishers, like, you're basically saying that, like, I've drank the Kool-Aid, I'm yours. Like, it's bad business to basically you're stifling free press. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. Mm-hmm. And if you stifle free press, then these publishers can get away with whatever they want and no one's ever going to report on it. I mean, just the fact that we're talking about this on GameFace is a big deal. Like, no one else has talked about this all week. And that's what you're going to get on this show. You know, there's a big difference because, see, we don't have that problem where we have to worry about, like, oh, if we say this, is Ubisoft going to cut off our sales and marketing? Like, why is nobody talking about this, Matt?
I think for that reason.
Exactly. I mean, this is the advantage of a subscription site is we can talk about things like this and not have to worry about, like, our revenue going away. So,
and Ubisoft can't see us.
Right. Oh, I know there are people from Ubisoft that are on Sifted for a fact, so they probably will see this.
Yeah.
But at the same time, what repercussions do they have, really?
I don't know. I mean, we didn't report anything. We just have opinions.
We have opinions, and it's not like they're giving us money for advertising. I mean, that is the one really nice thing about working on Sifted is that you don't have to kind of live with that in the back of your mind. And, like, even at all the other places I never worked, and I know you've never had it happen, and I never did either, where anyone came to me and said, hey, you can't say that because you still have it, though, in the back of your mind. Like, what happens if I do this, and then this happens, and then...
There were a couple of... I think there were a few times where we were like, what? Like, so a couple of things happened, but they weren't, like, anything on this level.
Well, no one ever came to me from inside the company.
Not inside the company, no.
Yeah.
So there have been some shady, hey, don't review this if you don't have to.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we've had, like... And those are usually straight from developers.
Right.
Because we worked on X-Play, our mantra there was firm but fair. That's how we handled our reviews. And, you know, certain developers would be like, oh, man, if X-Play gets a hold of this, because we do skits and sketches around it and really kind of pound the point home at times. And so, yeah, we did have a couple developers reach out to us and be like, hey, like, maybe don't review our game.
And if you look back at, I mean, I don't know how you would look back at those old episodes because, I mean, you know, maybe they're
lost
around
in
YouTube.
internet space,
But, like, if you look back or you think back, if you can remember some games that we really hit hard that we didn't like on the old X-Play, especially like San Francisco era X-Play, 3 guesses why we hit that extra hard. We probably got a phone call or two.
Yeah, I mean, I typically don't change my coverage at all based upon any of this crap. I just evaluate the product, but, you know,
Like, they didn't change the review, but it might influence a skit.
That goes with
the review.
Right, exactly. That's a good way of putting it. So... Anyway,
something we might have normally just let go. It's like, here's the review. There we go. Like, we'd be like, hey, why don't we talk about this for another 5 minutes, huh? You know, so,
but I never had anybody come to me at Tech TV or G4.
No, there's never anything like that.
But, you know, it's still, though, as someone who runs editorial, you do have
We were accused of that all the time.
Oh, yeah, of course. You're accused of it every day. But
nothing like that ever happened.
But you do have that little thing in the back of your mind of what if. And, you know, you may think that it doesn't affect you in any way. Maybe it doesn't, but maybe it does. Subconsciously, it affects how you operate. I don't know. But I'm glad to be in a place right now where I don't have to worry about any of that crap.
I don't think, I mean, I'm too much of a dick for that to affect it. I get, you know, that's like I used to say where people are like, oh, they get to go to these events and go to this thing and this thing. I'm like, all that, you know, I did enjoy going to a lot, you know, junket stuff, and that, you know, it's fun, and I'm friends with some of those people, and I do enjoy seeing them and hanging out and playing the games and stuff. But all that still doesn't make up for having to play like a 30-hour shitty game.
It doesn't.
Like in the end, like I'm going to be way angrier that I had to spend that time playing that game than I am going to be happy that I did anything fun beforehand. So
exactly.
In the end, it still comes down to you gotta sit in front of that monitor or that TV or that handheld and play that shitty game. And I'm going to tell you that I did not have a good time in the end.
All right, so it's time to move on to the next topic. So Thanksgiving is coming up in a couple days, and we used to do this on Invisible Walls back in the day on GT, and I felt like it's a good idea to bring it over to GameFace as well. So we're going to name, both of us are going to name a turkey, a 2015 gaming turkey. Matt, what from this year would you call a big fat turkey?
Well, this could change based on the future, and some people will be shocked to hear me say this, but my pick for turkey right now is Star Wars Battlefront.
What? After all the things you said about that game on this show.
I am about 20 some hours into this thing. I'm level 39, and like I have never seen technical problems in an online shooter on this level. A shocking, there's always going to be hiccups in any online game, but a shocking number of times I have seen this game, where clearly what I'm seeing on my screen is not what the other people are seeing on their screen, both in my favor and against my favor.
Now, Matt, this does happen in shooters all the time.
It does, but this is like...
Call of Duty does that. Like, you run out, you get shot, you shot the guy a couple of times, even got hit markers maybe, then you watch his replay, he never got shot at all.
Well, Battlefront is smart enough to never have a replay.
Right.
So you never quite know what's happening. But we've seen some, just, it's very sketchy, and... there's people that are starting to because it's hard to call things like this out because you're afraid everyone's gonna be like, hey, noob, get good,
Right, you just suck.
I've been playing this a long time. I do have a positive kill death ratio in the game. It's not very positive. It's only like 1.3, but it's I'm doing okay.
You're not getting your butt.
I'm not getting destroyed, but I am seeing stuff that is weird, and I'm seeing it not a few times a night like any other normal shooter I played, like Halo 5, which we just came off of. I'm seeing it 3-4 times a match.
Wow.
And it's just the other night we were playing Drop Pod on Tatooine, and 6 guys of the enemy team all together, in twos, they all came around the corner through the doorway, and I killed every single one of them, and they never fired a shot. Does that sound right to you?
No,
clearly they did not see what was happening as I was seeing what was happening.
Yeah.
The top
they were basically getting killed before they even saw you.
They were, and I've had that happen where I die before I even come around the corner.
Yeah.
It's the game is...
The latency is bad.
The latency is weird, and someone has the advantage and someone doesn't. Sometimes it's you, sometimes... And that's the other problem is, I'm not as big a shooter person as you are, but when I do play them, I play to be good at them.
Yeah, of course.
And I don't know if I'm good at this game right now. I don't know if I'm good or if I'm just, constantly getting in matches where I'm screwing the other people because they can't see me anymore.
Right.
And, I'm playing with one of my friends I've played with online for 15 years, and, he's having the same problems. I'm seeing, weird things with him, and we're seeing weird things with other people. And my favorite thing that happened so far is...
This is a huge about face, by the way, Matt.
It is. But there is a fun game in this somewhere, but it's buried under all this weird, technical hiccup problems. And I think, it's actually gotten better. The last couple of days have been better than the first few days of the game.
That's is something that can always be fixed.
So I think they're slowly kind of figuring it out and improving the servers or whatever's happening. It's slowly getting better. Everything is less frustrating, but it's still happening pretty often. And... it was a couple nights ago. We were on Walker Assault. It was the last push where the Walkers were coming down the last stretch, and we're the rebels. We're in the trenches shooting guys and whatever. And all of a sudden, Darth Vader's coming from the right. Yeah. So my friend and I turn and just unload on Vader, and his life bar's going down. I'm like, oh, I think we're going to kill him before he gets to us. We're gonna pull this off. And all of a sudden, my character just goes up in the air because he force chokes me.
Right.
So I'm hanging in the air, and my friend keeps shooting and kills him. He drops me, and I don't die. I don't die from the force choke because he didn't finish it. So I drop. I'm like, oh, he saved my ass. And my friend's like, I need to go to the tape on that one. Hang on. And so later he sends me a screenshot, and it's a shot from his point of view. I'm hanging. My character is hanging in midair with a little partner dot over him, over on the left side, and he's shooting. His gun is shooting. Vader's head is lit up in fire, and it says, "My gamer tag: Matt has defeated Darth Vader." I'm hanging in midair, choking to death, and I defeated Darth Vader. So that's the kind of latency problems you're seeing, and that took 5-6 seconds. I was hanging up there.
Wow.
So that's the kind of stuff you're dealing with, and it's just you never quite know whether you're playing the same game as everyone else.
Yeah.
And it's really irritating and frustrating. And then like you got.
Well, you got to realize this game is all built around this. Like
Yeah.
it's all competitive shit.
Yeah, exactly. We can't go let's just go play the campaign
Right,
instead because
yeah.
there's nothing else to play.
Yeah, exactly.
And the spawning is crazy. And like I've seen enemy soldiers spawn in front of me next to each other.
Oh
like
my
just
God.
boing, boing, face to face. And the great thing is, because you constantly change between Rebel and Imperial, so it's a Rebel soldier, I was a Rebel. Rebel appears in front of me, Stormtrooper appears right in front of him. And they both look at each other for a second, because you aren't like, oh, maybe I'm on the Imperial side. Like they weren't sure which side they were on for a second, because somebody spawned right there.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, they're like, ah! Yeah, and
Oh
everybody
my
just like opens
gosh.
fire. And it's like, and the smaller, obviously, it always happens, but the smaller the maps, the worse. And of course, it does this thing where, like, I guess, I think it's intentional, where, like, in order to prevent the map getting locked down, it will start spawning guys behind you.
Yeah.
And, like, it's so blatant. It's so, and, like, so there's just little elements that have that. And, like, there was a thing where you get challenges in the game, which let you, you get extra XP. So my challenge was win 3 droid run matches. We went and played droid run, and we lost 3 matches in a row, and they all counted as wins. We got the XP at the end of the match for a win, and they all counted in my challenge. I got the challenge off 3 losses.
This game sounds like it's a mess, Matt.
It kind of is.
I mean, look, this was your most anticipated game. I remember somebody asked us that at the end of one of the episodes we did a few weeks ago. And I think I said Fallout 4, and you said it was like Fallout 4, maybe Battlefront.
Yeah, and Battlefront.
And so for you to change face on this game that drastically,
I think when it works, I love it, but it hasn't really been working very regularly. It's not constant.
I haven't seen anybody mention this stuff, Matt, at all.
Slowly, people are starting to talk about it on forum. I think there's a big reticence to say so because people are afraid that they're just gonna think you suck. And I'm like, I don't suck. I'm always in the top, almost always in the top half, usually top 3. I mean, I'm not sucking at this game, but I'm just constantly seeing stuff that it's just not what happened. And it irritates me, and I've had to kind of let go of the idea that I'm trying to be really good at the game, because otherwise I'll just get frustrated.
You're gonna turn your brain off and just enjoy it.
The first few days there was a lot of screaming, and from both sides. My headset really went through the paces with my friend screaming too. And he's better at shooters than I am for the most part. He's when we play, usually I'm like number 3 and he's like number 1. And he was like bottom, he was like
that'll piss you off.
And as things have improved, both because we've learned the game better, but also because I'm seeing less of that stuff as each day. So they're working on it. Clearly they're working on it. But stuff where wins or losses,
that's just
how do you get that 1 and 0 wrong? It was, and it went on for 5 matches. It just kept going. And so stuff like that has just been. I mean, this is a game that I really want to love, and I want to play. I want to play all the expansion packs. I want to really immerse myself, and it's just not.
I wonder if this game's going to last until all the expansions
hard
come
to say. And also, I know they do the whole Star Wars Battle Fantasy, but my Star Wars Battle Fantasies don't really contain quite that much grenade spam.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't.
The other thing I've seen too is that Embargo scores pretty high, and then as slowly some of the reviews are starting to trickle in from some of the smaller sites who maybe didn't get to play the game 2 weeks in advance or weren't invited to the review event. You're just starting to see these reviews just go down, down, down. I think I saw one today that gave it a 5.5 or a 6.
Yeah, well, Vice put up it was an opinion piece, but it was called "Star Wars Battlefront is not a very good game."
Yeah,
and he cited a lot of the issues. He cited were more like the shallowness of the content and the lack of a lot of the modes do feel a little I feel like there probably needed to be a second pass on a lot of those modes where it's how come in Droid Run if we're ahead 3-2. If the other droid is starting to be captured and the timer runs out, the timer goes into kind of overtime and lets that other droid be captured, even though it leads to a draw. Why don't we just win? Why don't the winning team should just win when you have more points than the other team when the time runs out? Why do you give a grace period for a draw? It's very weird.
Yeah.
Why does the hero hunt thing why is it kill steal the mode as opposed to percentage of damage? Why? It's just things where it feels like no one ever had a meeting to sit down and say, hey, do these things play well? Because we don't really,
They're like, who cares?
Just get it out. I mean, I'm sure
X-Wing versus TIE Fighter, it's all good.
I'm sure they were under crazy time crunch, and I bet that, but I think there's a lot of balancing that needs to be done. I think.
Well, they also didn't allow those modes to be a part of the beta.
True.
Which probably would have helped.
Yeah, I mean the drop pod and
I didn't want a bunch of negative criticism coming from the beta. So
I mean drop pod and Walker Assault are definitely the two most solid modes in the game.
Yeah.
Probably
Surprise,
no
surprise.
coincidence. Yeah. And I think most people are playing Supremacy and Walker Assault. That's the thing, is the two 40-player modes are by far the most played. I'm playing on PS4, by the way. So
you should have definitely let everyone know that.
So maybe that's not the same on Xbox One or
PC. Yeah.
I do have the PC version, but I haven't played it as much.
Because you've already built up your character on
Yeah.
PlayStation 4.
I have the PC version mainly because it's gorgeous and I want to look at it.
Yeah.
And now that new mod just came out that makes it
gosh.
super crazy. I'm just like,
ridiculous.
oh yeah. But that's the thing. It's I think that game makes a really good first impression, and it's not until I've spent.
You actually play it.
Yeah, I played it almost every night since it came out, for hours at a time, and I'm like. At this point, it's that you start to dig into it, and the kind of the new thrill wears off, and you're kind of like, wait a minute, some of this shit doesn't work right.
This is a point where we should go and we should rewind back to episode 27 or 26 after I played the beta and I said all of this.
I don't think you
I
said
said
all that.
it. Well, I didn't say all the bugs.
Technical bugs,
but
because the beta ran great.
But I said that this game was not going to have legs and that people were going to get sick of it really quickly. And
I would not be sick of this game if it worked properly.
Yeah, but everybody else is. And no one's complaining about it not working.
Well, that's because they stopped playing it, I guess.
Could be.
I admit, PS4, I think it was something like more people are playing the PS4 version than the Xbox One and PC versions combined.
Right. Yeah.
But
that probably isn't helping with the latency.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm already seeing. We're already having some trouble getting into some of the smaller modes. Everybody's playing Walker Assault and Supremacy, the two 40-player modes, and not as many people by any means are playing. There's no player counts on each mode, but it's clear just how long it, because it does that thing where it's it'll drop you in a match, or then be looking for 80% full, looking for 70% full, looking for 40% full.
Looking for anybody.
Anyone who's out there.
Bueller.
And the Walker Assault and Supremacy is boom, you're in. The other ones, you got to sit and wait a little bit. And it wasn't like that before. So, and the other thing is the things I'm talking about.
Because people will stop playing.
Right. The things I'm talking about here with the technical hiccups and all that, much easier to notice in the smaller modes.
Sure.
And actually, so are the things you talked about kind of the shallowness of the content. And again, the expansion packs could help that. The patches and balance could help.
Will people still be around?
That's a good question. Because look, I'm already a little tired of so many of these matches devolving into just thermal detonators flying everywhere. It's that's just not what I'm
a lot of people will get the game for Christmas, so it should get a nice little resurgence. Hopefully they can get it up to scratch by then, so that all the people who join the fray at that point won't be turned off by the game.
Yeah, I would think so, but back in my...
They've got a month.
They got a month, but also in the back of my head is how long did it take to get Battlefront 4 work? Did they ever get Battlefront 4 working? I stopped playing that after 3 weeks.
Battlefield 4, you mean?
Battlefield 4, yeah. And you had to make another
They did
game
eventually. Battlefield 4 now is actually a really good game. That has a very dedicated group of people playing it, who were the few people who were patient enough to stick with it. So.
Well, that might end up being me on Battlefront circa expansion 4.
You could be that guy.
I could be that guy. I already bought the season pass because I'm an idiot.
No.
So, but
lesson learned, Sifter. See, don't buy the season pass.
Yeah. Well, the other thing about the Vice article was about how Star Wars is just kind of this scary delivery of content method, where people are just yes, please feed me more Star Wars, and that. Yeah, that's me to some degree. I'll be that. I've resisted the Force Awakens action figures and all that. I haven't bought any of that stuff because I'm what if I don't like it?
A little willpower.
What if I don't like it?
And you have a Jar Jar Binks.
Yeah, where it's what if Kylo Ren looks so cool. What if I hate Kylo Ren? What if I think he's stupid?
Yeah.
What if I don't like him? And
you can just keep the stuff and sell it 20 years later.
True, but for 5 cents.
Yeah, that's pretty much the value of that stuff.
Everyone collects it, but But with Battlefront, it's all stuff I know I like because it's the original trilogy, and I'm it's really pretty, and I love that I can run around as a Zabrak rebel soldier, and there's a lot of cool stuff in it. But it's just I'm at this point where I just don't trust it anymore.
Yeah.
Because I'm is the next guy who comes around the corner, are we going to see each other the way we see each other? I see him and he sees me, or is it going to be
alters how you play.
I just don't know anymore. And so now we're kind of adjusting to it and kind of. We're playing like dicks. We're like sitting behind crates and waiting for people to run in front of us and like camping people. And there's no other way to really ensure, because if you run and gun it, you die.
Yeah, a lot of people play Call of Duty like that too, not because of latency.
Well, yeah, because it is effective. But in this case, it's effective in a way that if it is off and you miss, you don't die.
Right.
You just miss, and the guy keeps running.
Yeah, exactly. So that's it. 2015 Turkey for you. Star Wars Battlefront.
Right now, mainly in large part because I was anticipating it so
Yeah.
much. Like I'm angry about it. You
Yeah.
know, there's been a lot of swearing. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, hopefully it gets better over the next
I
month
hope
or
so. I mean, that's what I say is like, you know, by the end of the year, by, you know, next June, maybe I won't be willing to call it that.
Yeah.
But for now, my only reaction to Battlefront is like, it's beautiful. Please fix your shit.
All right. So my 2015 gaming turkey is The Order 1886, PlayStation 4 exclusive action adventure. Although I use the word action very loosely when talking about that game. To me, The Order 1886 is everything that's wrong with early software on a platform. It's all flash and no substance. It's 5 hours long. It
really felt like a launch title.
Yeah, it literally checks every box of shoddy launch cash in. Beautiful graphics, check. Short amount of time to play it and finish it, check. Derivative gameplay, check. No reason to go back and play it again, check.
You didn't go back and get all the collectibles?
No. I could. The funny part was, if it weren't for the story in this game, which actually was the only semi-redeeming part of the game, I barely could make it through the 5 hours playing this game. I literally felt like I was playing a game from like the first 2 years of the Xbox 360, which really is what it was, because it was like a Gears of War ripoff before Gears of War actually added some depth to its gameplay. Like,
It was a Kill Switch ripoff.
yeah, there you go. Or a win-back ripoff.
Win-back ripoff, yeah.
So I was just, and here's the other thing that really bothered me about this game, Matt, is that the marketing for this game, like, they hid this game very well. Like, they never really let the press play the game. Like, they'd show you all these cinematic trailers that never showed off the gameplay, despite it was a lot like Rainbow Six Siege with the campaign, where you'd ask them, so what's the gameplay like? We'll be like, well, there's a story, and you say, no, there's this group of extraordinary gentlemen. Like, I mean, that's really what the game was, right? League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people got hoodwinked into buying it because of the graphics, because that's what a lot of people do. When they buy a new console, they want that game that shows off the visuals.
You want to see it work.
And these publishers know this, and they prey on it. And I feel like just the game was manipulative, the marketing was manipulative, the way the PR was done was manipulative. A lot of people got duped into playing this god-awful game that they could have sat and watched someone else play on YouTube in like 3 hours. Like, this is a case of a game that was made for, like, Let's Plays. Like,
yeah.
I would never begrudge somebody for watching The Order on YouTube instead of playing it themselves, which a lot of times I'm like, just play it yourself. But not with this game. Like, I would totally get not wanting to spend, not to mention a full-price game, I might add. This wasn't a budget title. They didn't give you this for $40 or $50. Like, this is a fully priced game. It just bothered me. The game isn't good. The way they handled it wasn't good. It's my biggest turkey of the year. And, you were saying about how you anticipated Battlefront a lot, and that's what really pissed you off. Well, the thing about this was I didn't even anticipate it that much, and it still bothers me that much. So
I forgot it came out this year until you just mentioned it.
Yeah.
So
it's my biggest gaming turkey for 2015. I can't see anything coming out after this that would trump it. You never know.
You never know, but like it seems like a pretty safe bet.
There's not a whole lot left. There's Xenoblade Chronicles X, which I'm playing already, so I kind of know what's up with that. There's Just Cause 3.
Just Cause 3 better be better than that.
Yeah, I would hope. I mean, just today they released the first hour of Just Cause 3. The studio did, that made the game Avalanche. And already, just watching the first hour of that, I can already tell
You're having more fun than with The Order.
Than playing The Order. So
I have not actually played I played The Order at E3 last year, but I have not actually played the final version.
Well, it's
because I'm waiting for it to be 1886.
Yeah, exactly. As far as how much you pay
Yes,
for it, yeah.
Exactly.
That's about the price that I would recommend somebody picking it up. Maybe even less.
If there's like some like really good like Black Friday deals for that game, I might pick it up for that.
The other thing too is I really haven't seen a lot of deals on this game. Like, it's still pretty much selling for full price.
It kind of came and went, and like if a store still has it, they seem to still at least want $49 for it.
Yeah. So I would not spend $49.99 on this game. I would not do it.
$10 an hour is a little much.
Yeah, and the other funny part too is when the reviews first started coming out for the game, and like you could see like the fans like saying, "You're crazy, you don't know what you're talking about. Like, it looks so awesome," and then eventually
it does look awesome.
Yeah, it looks great
visually, but like I don't know. I mean, I guess I played it early.
Well, the other part of it too is that the game is windowed.
Right. With
so,
it's cinematic.
Right. No, For the game to look that good, they had to window it so the frame rate wouldn't completely bottom out. So it does look great. I mean, technically it looks great, but there's just, again, it's like I said when
I'm
I
still a little shocked that anybody expected it to be anything other than what it was.
Well,
it seemed pretty obvious when you watch, even just when you watch footage of it originally. It was like, yeah, this is kind of a stop and pop shooter. But
we didn't even know it was like a stop and pop shooter. Like we really had no idea how it played like at all until it came out. And not only was it a stop and pop shooter, it had like the worst cover system like of any game in that genre. So yeah, that's my turkey for 2015, the Order 1886. It'd be interesting to see if there's an Order 2 or the Order 1995 or whatever the hell they'll call it, but I'd be surprised if they do. It did not sell very well.
Yeah, I feel like we're probably not going to get it. Although the end of that game, I mean, again, that game, just like so many other games I've complained about, it's an Act 1 masquerading as a full story. Like, the thing that happens at the end of Order 1866 is like 1886. Change your title. 1886 is like the end of that. I was like, oh, that's a setup for a pretty good story, an interesting story, and it's like, oh, it's over.
No, that's the end of the game, Matt.
It's like we spent a whole game setting up to tell you like the sequel.
Yeah, exactly.
That you're never going to get to make, probably.
That's storytelling in games for you, though.
Yeah.
All right, so it's time to move on to the next topic of the Big Six. This one digs a little bit deeper into the psyche of playing games. We're going to talk about feeling guilty while playing games. And there's kind of two angles of feeling guilty while playing games. And the one we're not going to talk about is the guilt that you feel because you're spending your time playing games when you should be doing something else. There's a lot of people that feel that way, and I think a lot of people, as they get older, the propensity for feeling that way is increased. As you get more responsibilities, maybe somebody has a kid or they get married. Some people just freak out. They're like, oh, I'm too old to be playing games. I'll never feel that way. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about actually playing a game and being placed into a moral quandary that makes you feel uncomfortable about what you're doing in the game. So, Matt, what is a game that made you feel guilty while playing it?
Well, this story is actually kind of not quite that.
Okay.
But the first game I'm going to talk about is RoboCop for the Apple IIe.
Okay.
Way back in the day.
Wow. That is a blast from the past.
It was a very, very bad conversion of the arcade game. If you remember, it's the Data East arcade game for the Apple IIe. But I got it, and I don't remember what happened, but like one of the various like punishment methods that my parents used when I was a kid was they would take my new thing away from me for a period of time.
That's pretty typical.
Yeah. So whatever I did, I probably came home late. Breaking curfew was like mortal sin in my house, and I did that all the damn time because I didn't want to come home.
Right.
Because I was having fun.
Want to run out.
And so the RoboCop got taken away. The thing was, I knew where my mom hid stuff.
When she took it away.
So I went, at one point when I knew no one was around, I went and I opened the box and I took the disc out and I just left the box where it was, put another disc in, a blank disc, because they didn't know anything about computers.
Right.
So I left it in and I would just go and play it. So I would play the game quietly in my room when I wasn't supposed to have it, and so that was the guiltiest I've ever felt playing a game was I was illicitly playing a terrible RoboCop game on my Apple IIe.
Interesting. Okay. Well, my first
Congrats on getting footage of that.
Yeah. You said I wouldn't be able to find any, and I found some.
I love. It's like, and when you see that, you can see it's like that's what I violated the family trust to do was to play that piece of shit.
That's how much you love games, though.
Yeah. You remember what I said about the principles don't matter?
Yeah.
You want to play the game,
right?
Yeah.
There you go. All right. So your story's kind of fun. My story's not quite as fun. So. My first game that I'm going to talk about is Grand Theft Auto 3. So, just a little bit of a background on when that game came out and where I was when it came out. So, I went to college in Philadelphia at Temple, and Temple is in North Philadelphia. In fact, it looks a whole lot like what you're seeing right on the screen right now. North Philadelphia is a terrible neighborhood. Literally, like one of the worst neighborhoods in the country. And Temple is plunked down right in the middle of some of the worst parts of North Philadelphia. I mean, literally, you have this beautiful college campus that's been around for like 200 years, and right next to it you have projects. Like,
is that where you're from? Or?
Well, no, that's just where I went to college.
Oh, not North Philadelphia, born and raised.
No, definitely not. And so the neighborhood's really bad. Like, literally, I would be walking to class, and I would see people come running out of the neighborhoods, snatch girls' backpacks off their back, and then run back into the neighborhood. And once they run back in there, you're like, I'm not going in there. Like, I mean, literally, it's like that bad. Like, you look at, like, the outside of the campus like a jungle. Like, it was like, you don't go in there. Like, it was that bad. And, there's just cars on blocks and just people selling drugs on the corners, and it's awful. So I was living not on campus. We had just moved out of the dorms, but like 2 guys that I had met in the dorms, we had gotten an apartment basically on campus, but it was like technically like half a block off campus. And it was Friday night one night, and we were all going over to my buddy's house, but one of our roommates was going on a date. And so he says, I'm going to the ATM machine to go get money, and the rest of us go get in a car and we leave. Well, he walks to the ATM machine, gets mugged and killed. So my opinion of like street crime and everything, like, I was pretty on edge about it. And he was like our best friend, and he was like mugged and killed, and he literally like made it back to in front of our apartment complex before they mugged him, and he died like right in front of our apartment complex. So I finish school, I graduate, I get a job at GameSpot, and just moved all the way to San Francisco from Philadelphia, which is a culture shock, and obviously a huge improvement compared to North Philadelphia. And I start working.
The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air should have prepared you for that.
Yeah, exactly. And so I start working at GameSpot, and right around the time after I start working there, this game comes into the office. And when we were working there, I used to work with Ryan Davis and Jeff Gersman and Ryan McDonald, really the whole OG like GameSpot crew, and those guys loved this game. Like, for whatever reason, like they had kind of caught wind of it before everybody else. And so Rockstar and DMA, or XDMA, had kind of hooked them up with like an early copy of the game. And I was sitting there like watching it over their shoulders. And it just completely disgusted me. Because what I had just gone through, and I knew what real street crime was, and what it's like to deal with street crime. And so to see this game that was like glorifying what had just happened to my friend, like, it disgusted me. And so a lot of people will say, well, you're okay with Grand Theft Auto now. Well, the difference between that Grand Theft Auto and the Grand Theft Autos now is that Grand Theft Auto, there's no tongue-in-cheek to it at all. It is like...
Not outside of the radio.
Nope. There's this faceless, stone-cold killer. That's who you play as. There's no levity to it. There's no comedy to it. You never see any side of this guy other than him being a scumbag, basically. And so I never could...
And he doesn't talk.
He doesn't talk. Like, and he's just like this guy that just goes from one like murder scene to the next. Like, it just crushed me. I could, and Jeff and Ryan loved it and were all over it. And like, I honestly couldn't even bring myself to play it. Like, that's where I kind of was mentally at that point in time. So eventually, like, we had to have our Game of the Year like conversations, and like they're already saying like, look, like this is going to be our Game of the Year. And like, I hadn't really brought up like how it was affecting me, and I didn't really want to tell anybody what had happened to me with my friend, because I just moved to a new city, and I don't want to think, oh, there's Shane, like the mopey guy whose friend was killed or whatever. So I had to like kind of kept
Are
it
they
all
that kind of dicks?
No, but
like that's not how I would have reacted.
I'm just saying, when you're trying to make friends, you don't want people to look at you like you've had this crazy bad thing happen to you that may make you a negative person or not be fun to hang out with, I guess is the best way to put it. I didn't want them to think that I was going to be like a Debbie Downer person to hang out with.
All my friends die.
Yeah, and it wasn't Jeff or Ryan's fault or anything. It was just me internalizing it and saying, well, I don't want people to think that like I'm going to be no fun to hang out with, and like maybe they won't invite me, because you want to make friends. You're in a new city, you don't know anybody. So Grand Theft Auto 3, it's like, okay, they're like, look, this is our Game of the Year, like, so everybody needs to go play this, because we'd have an initial Game of the Year meeting where everyone kind of talks about what their nominees are, and so I played it. I had to play it. I felt like I had to bite the bullet, and just for my job, to make sure I did my job well, because, that job meant more to me than anything. Like, it was like my quote-unquote big break or whatever, and like, I didn't want to screw it up, so I forced myself to play Grand Theft Auto 3, and the whole time I played the game, all I thought about was my friend, and I just felt like a piece of crap the whole time I played that game. So that game made me feel really guilty for doing the stuff that I had to do in it, because of what had happened to my friend in real life right before it had come out. So that's my first pick.
I feel a lot better about the RoboCop thing.
Yeah. That's what I was saying. I almost wanted to like switch up the order there. I'm like, your story was so fun, and I'm like, mine is so not. I'm like, maybe I need to flip my picks and talk about the second one first. But so now we're ready to talk about your second one, which is
my second one would be Shadow of the Colossus.
Yeah.
Which is, I might add, my favorite game of all time. But early on when you're killing those colossi, like it really plays it up as like they didn't do anything. They just, early on you probably think they're just like animals of some kind, like wandering around, and you just decide to like roll up with your magic sword and stab them until they fall over dead to a very sad piece of music. And like you're kind of like, oh, so I felt really guilty for killing the first like 2 or 3 of these things.
See, I don't hate to interrupt you, but I just wanted to kind of bring up, like, I actually got the exact opposite from that, because when it first started, I think I was so awed by the game and just like these massive creatures that were so well rendered, and the fact that I had to scale them, like. I didn't think about any of like the mental implications of it at all. I was just like, oh my god, this is like the most awesome thing ever. Like, I was so excited to just be playing the game that, like, at first, none of that hit me.
Right.
Anyways.
Well, like the thing, like, it didn't hit me until the first one falls, and it's just that sad kind of music as it drops to its knees and falls over, and it's like, oh, like that's kind of horrible that I killed that thing. And then the second one, like, is kind of like
I thought they were enemies, because the game sets it up as like, these are the bad guys. Like, you need to go out and you need to kill these things because they're bad.
That's the thing, is it doesn't. The demon just says, go kill these things.
Right.
Go kill these things. And it's just like, all right, I guess I gotta go kill it. And like, you're like, oh, these things just sort of wander around and mind their own business. But then as like you go on, you start running into more aggressive ones.
Right.
And ones that'll attack you on sight. And ones that do things that are really fucking annoying. And like, so by like Colossus 7 or 8, I'm just like, oh, I'm gonna kill you. And then of course you realize what's actually happening, and then you don't want to do it anymore because clearly it's not working out.
Yeah.
And so you kind of come back around to the whole like, oh, like what I'm doing is really bad, but like for a different reason than what you thought before. But yeah, I would say I felt bad. I still do. I mean, I played through that game probably 7 or 8 times, and every time I feel bad when I kill the first couple of them, because like the first one. He's just walking around. He's just hanging out, and like there's this little kid runs up and starts stabbing him in the head. And then like the second one is kind of like a big dog, and and you like hit it in his you're like hitting it in the foot, and it's like rolling over hurt, and you're just like, oh, these poor things. And then like eventually they just become monsters to you. And it's a really cool. I think
the dynamic
actually,
of that game is what makes it so incredible.
I think it's intentional. I think it's a really cool
definitely.
progression and dynamic to the game, and it's the reason why. And I think people keep talking about adapting that to a movie, and I'm like, that is one of the games that I will always call out as like this. What this does to you, what it presents to you, the experience it takes you through, can't be replicated in any other medium. Any translation into another medium is going to lose something.
If you're not doing it,
if
you're
not doing it, you're going to lose something. If it doesn't take you like 10 hours to go through all 16 of these things, you're going to lose something. If you don't have to spend time in that huge, open, like lonely world, you're going to lose something. If you
using your sword,
if you add dialogue somehow to like a movie or like an internal monologue, if you wrote a short story about it, you're going to lose something.
Yeah.
Like it is one of the most perfect uses of the medium. It's not a perfect game, but it's one of the most perfect uses of the medium of video games to me.
And it is odd how it was completely opposite for me, because I killed the first 2 Colossi without even thinking about it. I was just like, this is the best game ever. Like, I can't believe I get to climb up these massive bosses or whatever. 'Cause that's the way I was looking. I guess what it was is that I was just looking at it as a video game. I wasn't thinking about any of those implications, because games train you like, here's big monster, kill big monster, because big monster wants to kill you. For me, it was the third one. When I killed the third Colossi, that was when it hit me. I'm like, wait a minute, like, these guys haven't attacked me at all. Like, I am like coming to them and killing them because somebody told me to do it. But they're not aggressive towards me. They're not attacking like my base, or like they haven't threatened me in any way. They haven't kidnapped like my...
You're basically breaking into their home.
Yeah.
And,
that was when it hit me, like the third one.
You and your accomplice horse.
And then, like, they start working in that whole aesthetic into the actual plot, and that's when you really start to realize, oh man, holy cow. But that's what also is great about this game, is how it does affect people differently on an emotional level. Like, at first I was like all gleefully killing them, and then I was like, oh, wait a minute, like these things are kind of nice.
Yeah. There's like big animals.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Though they, it is a great game, I agree. My big issue was just like the implementation of the gameplay and the controls. Like, I'm a big gameplay guy, and I love the aesthetic of it, but the actual playing of the game felt really clunky to me. But otherwise, you're right. It is one of the sterling examples of the medium, and it's one of those games that you want other people to play who don't get video games, because it's one of those games that can kind of turn the tide for somebody. Like, maybe somebody's like, well, I play Miss Pac-Man, or like... I played Call of Duty once. Like, you give them this game, and if they can stick with it for after the first hour or 2 hours or whatever, like they'll come back to you and be like, "Oh my god, thank you, thank you." And now I get it. Now I understand why you love these things so much, because I think it actually, like, you know, I kind of blew off the beginning of the game because I've been so conditioned by other games to just assume that's the way games were. I think people who don't play games as much get struck by it a lot more quickly than people who are kind of preconditioned to the way video games work and things like that. So it's like a great ambassador game. It's definitely one of those games that you can turn people onto the medium with. And you're right, it's intelligent storytelling. I honestly think that a movie for this would be okay.
It would be a spectacle, but it just wouldn't be the same thing. It would. It's like the Watchmen movie. Watchmen is a pretty decent, like translation of that comic. But to make a movie out of Watchmen is to miss the point of Watchmen.
Yeah, I think for us too, if we watched a movie based on this, or if they did a movie based on this, like once you kind of know the twist.
Yeah, it's also like, do you cut it down to like 4 or 5 colossi? Do you or do you have like a are colossi like 4 through 12 like a montage? Like, because that would just be like funny to me. That would just seem like comedy to me.
For sure.
It's like stab, because I can feel the temptation to do that, because you'd end up with, if you made a real movie about that, I would make like a 16-part miniseries on HBO, which is no dialogue. Like, basically, it would be like my Apocalypto. It would be like no dialogue, just this kid hunting a new one every week, and as you got to the end, like the plot developments would slowly come in. But like, it would be like the most like artsy, boring thing you've ever seen, basically. Yeah. And like you have to make it as like a big blockbuster picture, and I just don't. I'm just imagining like Tom Cruise like running around like with his like running from every falling colossus and all this. It's just.
Well, I think for us it would just probably suck, because what would happen is we already know like what the big twist is, and so we would just be watching it not for the film like an average person would. We'd be looking for like the inaccuracies and like how they.
All right. Well, yeah. I'd be sitting there. It's like, all right, what did you do wrong? Like,
right. Exactly.
It'd be like having like a angry parent evaluating your writing.
Exactly.
The one thing that I would say would be a positive about a movie they made out of that would be like, it would be nice if more people had been exposed to that aesthetic of that. Because
it looks like we're never getting another one. So
yeah, well, 11 years.
Yeah.
11 years.
Yeah, and imagine how well that game would do if they made another one.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad we got the HD version.
Yeah,
they were cool, but again, they did use the European version of the game, which is a little harder,
right?
And a little. I don't think it flows quite as well because of the extra difficulty.
Yeah, we're kind of getting the vibe with The Last Guardian, but obviously not the gameplay.
But we'll have to. 11 years.
Yeah, I know.
Like, that thing's gonna have to be. I don't know what.
It's hard to live up to expectations after that much time.
Yeah, to the point that I've had expectations, and then I lost my expectations, and I got new expectations, and then we're here again. I'm just like, I don't even know what I expect anymore.
All right, so my last pick for games that made me feel guilty while playing is a game that I honestly feel like everybody should play. It is called Spec Ops: The Line, and this is like a third-person military shooter. It definitely flew like way, way under the radar, and a lot of people say that games like Call of Duty deals with controversial subject matter. This game really did. Like, it deals with like the psychology of being basically a mass murderer, and like within the context of war, making it okay.
Unfortunately, you have to hack through about 3 hours of really mediocre shooter stuff to get to it.
Yeah, there's some cool stuff in this game too, though. There's like that whole sand mechanic where you use sand to like kill people, and like environmental kills and whatnot. But the scene that we're showing right now is a scene that really, really messed with me. So basically what happens is you come up on this little like sandbag thing. There's this army down below that you need to wipe out. And so you have this weapon to the right. It's a mortar that shoots, I think it's called white phosphor. And you're the commander, and you basically tell the rest of your team, you're like, okay, if we don't use this white phosphor, we're all going to die. It's the only way that we have to kill this army down here, and if we don't kill them, they're going to kill us. And one of the guys on your team says, hey, dude, that's white phosphor, you know what that stuff does. And he's like, I know exactly what it does, and we don't have a choice, so we're going to use it. And so they're begrudgingly, your team sets up the mortar, they fire the mortar. Before they fire the mortar, the one guy says, even another time, he says, is that an order? because, he is weighing on his conscience, and he's like, look, if you tell me it's an order, and we formalize that, then my hands are clean. So he's like, yes, that's an order. So they fire the mortars you're seeing right now. They're firing them. They're dropping them down on the armies. And so what ultimately happens is they finish firing the rounds. It's like a smoke grenade type. It's a chemical weapon is what it is.
It's phosphorus. It just ignites the air, basically.
Pretty much, yeah. And so what happens is they drop all the rounds. They go down. You can see already it's like pretty much killing all the soldiers down there. So they walk down and they go to inspect it. And have you played this, Matt? Did you play through this?
No, but I watched it.
You watched this scene in particular?
Yeah, I watched someone play most of it.
So is this like a really popular thing, or
what?
This scene is this like something?
I think among people like us, like people who love and know games, everybody knows Spec Ops. Kind of gets into this dark shit.
Well, the line, yeah, but I mean, this particular scene is what really shook me.
Yeah, this is known as the scene that kind of turns the corner, I think.
Oh, because I mean, this game is full of stuff like this, by the way.
Yeah.
There's scenes where they tell you to let a guy live or die, and it's not clear cut this is a bad guy.
There's a lot of civilian stuff that you have to deal with, but it's it's weirdly it's kind of a comment on modern military games.
Oh, it totally is. It makes you think about what you're doing. And so here's what really started to get to me. So you go down and you start to inspect the battlefield to see if the weapons have worked. And oh boy, have they ever worked. There's people basically being burned alive. They're all pleading with you, basically kill me. Put me out of my misery, because they're burning, It's igniting their flesh or whatever. So you walk through the wasteland of this battlefield, and all these people are crawling, trying to get out of the phosphor, or just begging you to kill them. And then ultimately what happens is you come across a mother and a child, and you find out that there were civilians that you had just killed. Literally just scores and scores of civilians that you had just mass murdered. And I don't know if I've ever felt so bad playing a video game as whenever this happened. It was just mortifying. And the messed up part is I almost got really angry at the developers for doing this. And look, I kind of get why they do it. I understand that they're trying to make a political statement about it, but I feel making a player do something like this is you're making somebody do something that they probably wouldn't want to do. In my opinion, this is one case where giving the player choices probably would have been one of the best games to offer player choice, to allow someone to make that. I mean, look at this, dude. I don't know. It just really shook me to the core, man. I felt so guilty.
I appreciated it in the sense that it's a counterpoint to the kind of I don't think the Call of Duty games try to make war look fun. I don't. People say it's
they don't glorify.
I don't think
anything.
they glorify it. I don't think they make it seem like something good. But there is Spec Ops: The Line really kind of took a stand and said hey, even on that level, this stuff is horrifying.
It really is.
People come back from this, and people are coming back from this
stuff. Here are the civilians right here. It's shot.
This is people come back and are never the same, and maybe making mass entertainment out of it is not.
Which is what they did.
Which is what they did. But you have to use your medium somehow, I guess. But it's I appreciate what they're trying to say with this, and they are also commenting on kind of the people forget that civilians are casualties of war all the time. In World War II, it was something 21 million civilians were killed,
right.
and in total war, that happens, and that's one of the reasons everybody doesn't want to go to war, is because everyone gets involved. It's not just some far off military skirmish that we don't have to think about. It's if it happens where you live, you're on the line, and you're on, and that's. It's a reality that maybe the Western world or the first world doesn't know about anymore.
See, so here's the thing. So going back to No Russian, which is the classic case of the game that made me feel guilty. With No Russian, you didn't have to shoot anybody. In fact, the first time I played through it, I didn't shoot anyone at all. The people who are with you will take care of all the killing. You don't have to kill anyone, and I didn't. I literally
not until someone shoots back at you.
Right. Yeah, right. There's that one point where finally someone shoots, and then you have to finish the mission or whatever. But this whole thing where you're mowing down the people in the airport, you don't have to do any of that. These guys who are with you will take care of all of it, and I didn't do any of it. So this game gave you the choice of whether you wanted to be the scumbag, but Spec Ops: The Line doesn't give you that option. It's if you want to move forward in the game, you have to drop that white phosphor on them, and you have to watch that cutscene, and you have to be the bad guy, which also kind of stands in contrast to the rest of the game where there was kind of choice in what you could do. So, yeah, as far as that probably is the game that made me feel the most guilty ever playing it. And I didn't appreciate the fact that I had to be that person and do that. And I get it. They're trying to make a statement about war. And it was impactful, and it did change my perspective on not just the people who are caught up in war, but what soldiers have to do. Like the one guy, like saying, is that an order? Because otherwise, I ain't doing this crap. Like, that happens to people on the battlefield all the time, every day probably, where they're asked to do something that they personally have an issue with. So, like I said, I think when we first started talking about this, I'm like, I feel like everyone should play Spec Ops: The Line. And now people are like, wait a minute, you said everybody should play it. And I think it's for the reason that you said, because it does kind of make a statement, not just about war, but also about like games based on war. And sometimes it's very easy to just sit back and just mow down like 500 people or whatever. Or one time I came in from drinking, and I was kind of lit up when I came in. I started playing Call of Duty, and I actually felt guilty playing multiplayer in Call of Duty. I don't know why. I don't know what kind of mindset I was in or whatever. But I came in and started playing it, and I was like, this is disgusting. And, like, I stopped playing it. Like, I'm not kidding. Like, I realized I just murdered, like, 50 people. And, like, again, it's a game, and it's not real. But sometimes it does affect you on that subcutaneous level. Like, in this game, I mean, it was just over and over. This game did it. I mean, literally, there's, like, 10 instances in Spec Ops: The Line where I was like, what? Like, you're really going to make me do this? And
there's some things, I mean... You're right about... I would say if there was another game I was going to pick for this, we don't have footage, so we won't talk about it much, but I would say when my Renegade playthrough of Mass Effect 3, I had to do some things I really didn't want to do.
Yeah.
And there was one particular thing that I think most people that like have played that game know what I'm talking about, but I had to do a thing, just because my Renegade playthrough, I stick to Renegade. I'm Renegade. Like, I don't have a choice in it. I'm going full Renegade. And I had to do a thing to a character... And I did not like my Shepard for a while after that. Yeah. It's funny how like you can really feel like these become real moral choices in these games, especially if you identify with the character you're playing as. Like, and it's like there's no other medium like it, because you can't really. I'm trying to compare, like, it's like, well, yeah, Spec Ops: The Line makes you feel kind of uncomfortable and upset. But, like, art doesn't have to be friendly all the time. I was trying to come up with, like, a comparison to, like, an unpleasant-to-watch movie, like maybe something like Irreversible or something. Something that's valuable to have seen, but maybe you wouldn't want to see it again. But, like,
I can come up with tons of movies like that.
But
there's lots of movies I've watched where afterwards I'm like, I hope nobody can ever see my history of what movies I watched.
But there's sort of this thing of our movies kind of, a lot of the best movies that kind of cross that line kind of do so with the knowledge that you're like the voyeur of the story, whereas games, like you're doing it.
Yeah.
And as much as you can remove yourself from whatever into something like Spec Ops: The Line, like, well, I didn't really choose that. That's how the story went. I'm not that guy. I didn't make that choice.
For instance, why
still
Spec
throws
Ops,
you through that.
Did they not let you play the guy who's like, no? Like, is that an order?
Because I think it's important that you be that commander character. That's the line.
They could have softened it a little bit by making you that person who objected to it, but still had to do it because that's your job or whatever.
But
at the end of the day,
you don't get that out in that game, and I kind of like that.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it is really impactful, and it does make you question a lot of things that go on that you just kind of just let it blow in one ear and out the other.
And I also think that, like, it got some criticism at the time for the main character's voice being Nolan North.
Yeah, it is Nolan North.
Basically doing Drake. I mean, there was a period where everybody just had Nolan North come in and do Drake's voice, like, for everything.
Yeah.
So to me, in a sense, like, the guy in that game is sort of like Drake's older brother. Which I guess is that whole headcanon is going to go out the window when 4 comes out because his actual brother is showing up.
Right.
But I think there's also something we say, like, once you get into the meat of that game, the fact that it's Nolan North, like one of probably the top 2 male voice actors in gaming, going through that story, like, that also gives it a little extra kick, I think.
I actually kind of found it comforting for some reason. Isn't that odd?
Yeah. Nolan North is him and Troy Baker are kind of the male anchors.
Right, they're just like the guys
that
you've been on adventures with, and they're kind of your bros, and like...
It's like the ultimate, like, comforting action picture would probably be like Nolan North, Troy Baker, and Jennifer Hale all go on an action adventure together. Like that would be the gaming voice actor, the Mummy.
This scene is so horrible, by the way. All right, I don't want to see it anymore. All right, Tony, that's good. So an interesting topic, nonetheless.
Yeah.
I mean,
and a real one, I think. Like when you say that to someone that doesn't really play games, I think even someone like when you first texted me, I'm like, "What the hell does that mean?" Like, really? And then you think about it, and you're like, "No, there have been times when I didn't want to do what I had to do."
So I think a lot of people that play games, like they always say it's not real. And, it always gets mixed up in the whole violence in video games thing, right? Because it's kind of like the out for whenever people say, oh, well, violent video games cause people to be violent. And so I think a lot of people that play games try to say, well, games don't affect you. Because if they feel like if they admit that also means that violent games can make people violent. And that's not the case at all. And I don't think there's anything wrong with admitting that games can affect you on that level. In fact, it's one of the reasons why I play it, because there's a possibility of that happening. And
I'll tell you this, the more video games I play, the less likely I am to kill someone in real life.
Yeah, exactly.
Believe you me.
But I feel like we have like this built-in defense mechanism as gamers where we're like, well, if we allow this and we say that, yeah, it affects me in this way, then we're also admitting that it's affecting us in some other way. And it opens the door for people who don't play games to be like, well, see, you felt guilty playing that game, so how do you know if you're not playing violent games, it's not going to make you violent? And so... Well,
because, like, Dungeons & Dragons doesn't make me satanic, and watching Rambo movies doesn't make me more violent, and none of that makes any sense.
But it is different, because you're doing it. I mean, we said that
already. And also, no matter what you say about video games, movies, whatever, anyone of any age can walk into a bookstore and buy a Stephen King novel, which I guarantee you has vastly worse things in it than anything I've ever seen on a screen. Yeah. So...
It is just an odd dynamic, though, because we are very defensive. Because, I think we all believe that it's not true that violent games will lead people to commit violent acts. Unless they were predetermined to do it anyway, and then a movie could have done it or anything else could have done it.
And in that case, I think it's just part of the tapestry of their existence. It's like... That didn't make them do that. It was maybe something they were interested in because they had that tendency in the first place.
And that's why they watched that movie or played that game in the first place.
But it didn't create that impulse. It was part of that, part of them acting on that impulse.
The impulse is what made them choose that piece of media.
And then you wander into the argument like, well, maybe that's they're warning signs. Like, well, no, because 8 million people play Call of Duty and 8 million people have not gone out and killed someone. So... it's like scary that someone can snap and do that, but you can't, there is no given metric. There is no secret key of like, oh, they're into, like this kind of music or this kind of whatever, and then that means that that's what they are. And it's like, well, that just doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
The numbers don't hold up in any way for that.
Yeah. Well, I enjoyed that conversation. Hopefully you sifters did as well. It's time to move on to something much more light. In fact, about as light as it can get.
Yeah. In fact, gravity-defying in some senses.
Exactly. So today it was announced by Koei Tecmo that they are not going to be bringing over Dead or Alive Xtreme Beach Volleyball 3 to the West.
Boo.
And it wasn't like this weird, like nebulous, like they literally wrote on their Facebook page, we are doing it to avoid backlash and controversy, because they literally said the way things have changed recently in the games industry. So the first thing we should say is that the game before this one, that played and looked just like this one, came out in the United States. Yeah. No problem whatsoever.
The last two of them did.
And look, we kind of talked about this last week with censorship, and so I don't want to spend a ton of time talking about this. But the one thing I will say is, like, a lot of people are like, I don't get it. Like, who cares? Like, this game isn't coming out here. But here's one thing I would say is that, like, if you wanted a volleyball game for your PlayStation 4, this is the only place you're going to get it.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing.
Say what you want about the sex and the boobs and the butts and whatever and all that, but the bottom line is there's no volleyball game for PlayStation 4.
No.
And it's actually a pretty decent volleyball game.
Yeah, that was actually one of my, before this was, I knew this was also on the Big Six. It was one of my picks for guilty games. It was like, I played the other two because like the volleyball's pretty good.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's like basically a cheesecake like softcore simulator. But like the first one, especially on the first Xbox, I played that for a long time because the volleyball was fun.
Well, here's the other thing too: is that like we talk about how Wire games all rated 7 to 10. Well, it used to be back in the day that you would have like volleyball games to buy.
Yeah,
and they were
beach spikers,
right? And they weren't great, but you know what? They reviewed a 5 to like a 6 or whatever. Yeah. And if you liked volleyball, there was your damn volleyball game. Well, we don't get them anymore, and so. People are like, oh, what's the big uproar about censorship? It doesn't matter. It's like, oh, well, they're changing it. It's not being censored for the U.S. Well, The problem is that when you crack the door open and you crack it each little time, eventually that door is wide open for them to do stuff like not bring a volleyball game to the United States.
Well, I think it's silly that, they're just being paranoid in that regard. And I know that, everybody's afraid that you're going to get backlash on, Twitter, Tumblr, or whatever, there's but it's also I think a lot of people don't mind, it's more that I think they're misinterpreting what people are complaining about when it comes to the sexist depictions of things in games like this is it's more like when you've got a game that's otherwise has nothing to do with sort of cheesecake or sexy stuff, and you just put in the girl with ripped clothing and the chainmail bikini and all this shit. Whereas this is right. It's hey, that's what we're here for, folks.
I mean, look, I'll be perfectly honest with you. Sometimes when I'm flipping through the channels and I come across beach volleyball, I'll stop and watch it.
Well, also
and it's not because I love beach volleyball.
Well, also and also you know who's the most excited about this game in my house? Is my girlfriend.
Oh, really?
She loves these games. She loves the Dead or Alive games. She loves the Dead or Alive Xtreme Beach Volleyball games. And she's like, oh, I'll just import the Asian version then.
Wow.
This is not stopping her. She is going to have her bikini-clad volleyball players
if
it kills
English,
her.
Here's the thing, it does have English subtitles.
Yeah, the Asian version
which means
has them,
that Koei Tecmo is hedging its bets a little bit, saying, well, you know what, people who really want it will probably import it.
Yeah, but most Asian versions of them have that because you have to have them, I think, in Hong Kong or something. It's a legal thing.
Gotcha. I was not aware of that.
Yeah, but there's the other Asian PlayStation. It was a PlayStation 3 game, but they did a version. You remember Endless Ocean?
Yeah.
Those games on the Wii?
Yeah.
There was a PS3 version that never came here, and there's an Asian version that has English subtitles that you can get, but it's hundreds of dollars because everybody wants it.
Right.
So, but the Asian version, if something's never coming here, and if you have a region-free system like the PlayStation has been for 2 generations now, you can get the Asian one, and it'll work, and you get the subtitles, and it's great. But the only downside is, I guess you need to create an Asian account to be able to download any DLC or buy any DLC.
Yeah, that starts to get dicey.
And you know that this thing's going to be DLC.
Oh yeah.
Beyond
bikinis and outfits and all that.
I mean, this is come on. We saw the last Dead or Alive game, which was all DLC.
Final Round still is putting out new DLC.
It's hundreds of dollars of DLC. And especially because this fits right into that kind of, what's the top-selling DLC in Japan history is Idolmaster,
right?
Where you're just buying songs and outfits
for your idols. Yeah.
So I think this is along the same line. So yeah, you're probably gonna want some DLC on this one.
Matt, is this what the Gamergaters call the social justice warriors winning?
See, I don't know because I'm sure there's people that are that do think this is a victory, but most. I think people that they would describe as that.
I mean, I don't even think the people that they call social justice warriors look at stuff like a winner or a loser. No. I think they're just standing up for what they believe.
Right, but I think most of this is they don't want to stop these games from existing. They want other options on the shelf next to them. If they want to, they would like a volleyball game that you don't have to dress in bikinis to play, which is not really how people play volleyball, but not beach volleyball. I mean, professional volleyball is done in sporting wear, but
although those outfits are also pretty skimpy.
Yeah, well, you got to move, man.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think they're advocating for options for people who don't want to put up with this kind of thing. But I'm saying those people we're never going to buy this game in the first place.
Right.
That's not the audience. And the audience for this is male and female. This is not
like you said, your girlfriend.
Yeah, this is not something that everybody hate. Some people think it's fun, and I think it's fun. I thought the achievements in the last one were ridiculous, but what I'm saying is this is there, you can buy it, and the thing is this isn't a situation where a lot of people complain and a lot of people dislike is when you buy a game that you're interested in for other reasons than the cheesecake idea and it's full of it anyway.
Yeah.
As opposed to this where it's what you're buying here.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, this is right out there, and I think they're just being paranoid about because any backlash on this game would be from people who weren't going to play it anyway.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Because this is Dead or Alive. This is the series has been doing this. Even the non-Extreme Beach Volleyball version of the series has been doing the cheesecake kind of ripping clothing, and their big bragging point on this is the swimsuits slip off.
Right. Sometimes. No, that's PlayStation 4 exclusive.
Exclusive? Oh, okay.
It's the slipping bikinis.
You needed the extra physics processing to make that happen, right? And the wet skin technology.
Yeah.
But no wet hair technology.
Yeah.
After all these years, you think you can make the hair look like real hair getting wet, but I guess it's somehow not our priority.
Yeah.
But I think these games are pretty harmless fun, and I think most people would even people that do kind of campaign against sexism in gaming. I think most people would agree that even those people, for the most part, would agree that they're not fooling you on this. They're not trying to like slip this in. They're not trying to like sexually objectify like something that's in a game that doesn't warrant it. This is like, that's what this game is for. And like, no one's under any illusions about that. So while some people may find it distasteful, I don't think it's the same thing most people are complaining about in that regard. But maybe that's a more fine-tuned distinction than Tecmo is willing to make on this.
But don't you think because of, and look, I even hate using these terms, Gamergator and social justice warriors, I hate just saying them. But don't you think because of like that whole dust up between these two groups that's why they're not bringing it out here? I mean, because what I'm looking at is like, okay, why did these games come out last gen without a problem? And why now all of a sudden are they a problem? I feel like it's because of this controversy that's happened between these two groups of people.
Probably.
I don't even know if the social justice warriors even exist. Like, I feel like that's something that Gamergate has fabricated.
Yeah, well, no, that term is generally considered a pejorative term that people use to try to shore their own position, right. Basically. Like, although, again, there's nothing really negative in that term. Like, social justice warrior, I'm like,
nothing really bad about that, yeah.
I play warriors all the time in video games.
It's just been demonized, basically,
right.
Yeah.
But, like, the thing is, like, I think Tecmo Koei is just misjudging the water on that one.
Overcorrection.
To keep with the beach terms. And I'm sure there are people that point at it and say, like, see, you're robbing us of games we want to play. And it's just like, well, really, it's more like, if people could just say, make their criticisms of this kind of thing and not be attacked, like, so virulently, maybe the company wouldn't be afraid to wade into that. There wouldn't be a fracas to kind of avoid. It would be more like, yeah, you're probably right, but like, be cool-headed about it. But that doesn't really happen. So, I think they're reacting to that and they don't want to get involved, and so they're just going to do that. But it's like, it's not like you can't still get it. It's not like, people in the West are never going to hear about this game. It's like, if it's going to be a flashpoint, it's going to be a flashpoint.
Yeah.
And now that they've done that in response to it, it might make it even more of a flashpoint. So
it might end up turning into something. We'll see. I mean, again, just breaking it down to the most simple elements, it's like, now there's no volleyball game for the PlayStation 4 for however long. Like,
yeah.
I mean, I've told this story before across the years, but like, the one way I could always tell which console was going to win, if you talk to casual people, they always have like niche interests that they're into. And like, I used to be really good friends with these two twins. They're both like 6'5", and they were into volleyball. And yeah, I know, how hilarious is that? It's so ridiculous. So,
but it knows it.
Oh, yeah, of course.
That's why it's fun, is because it knows it's ridiculous.
Yeah. And so those friends, when, they're one of the people that reach out to me, like, whenever they're getting ready to buy a new console. And the one question they always ask me is, like, which console has the best volleyball game? Like, that's what they care about, because they know they're not hardcore gamers.
Must have been through a very long string of disappointing generations.
Yeah, seriously. Seriously. Like, they are really burned by the B-level games going away. But, like, to them, stuff like that matters. There's a lot of people out there who have, like, a little thing that they're really into, and like they care that that game's not available. And so, I don't know. I think it's pretty wrong that game's not coming to the U.S. It's like you said, it's pretty much,
it's sad.
It's harmless fun, and like I feel like it's disappointing, and I feel like people with loud mouths have been able to kind of take over the conversation and make a prominent video game developer and publisher adjust its position. I mean, 10 years ago, it was fine for them to put that out here. Now, not so much. And what's changed? The whole climate around games, and a big part of that was that whole.
And I don't think if they had put it out here, I don't think anyone would have cared.
No, but now they will.
Well, especially because like it almost certainly would have been a digital-only release.
Yeah.
And barely anyone would have. The only people would have noticed the people who wanted to play it.
You're right.
Just like Yakuza.
Yeah, you're right.
Yakuza 5 is supposed to still be out by the end of the year. Does anyone know but me? No, not really.
Yeah. Some people on Sifted like it.
Yeah, but I mean, there is an audience for sure, but that's why it's still, slowly but surely every few years Sega's forced to put another one out in English. But like, it's the same kind of thing. It's like, is anyone, maybe if there was like a group of people who's like super against games that feature organized crime as an element because it's exploitative or whatever, like, would they even know Yakuza 5 existed? Probably not, because it's like just buried under PSN on the PS3, no one knows. But, and so, I just don't think this would have been, I think it would have been a non-issue, and also, like, if people didn't have the same reaction, more or less, to Dead or Alive 5, which also has all the wet skin tech and, like, the zooming on the boobs and people's outfits get ripped up, I mean, it's the same kind of thing.
But it's a fighting game.
Yeah, but it's just this is a volleyball game.
I know,
It's
that's what I'm saying.
We're not actually here for the bikinis. We're here to play volleyball and jet ski and do that thing where you bump into each other's asses until you fall in the pool for some. I don't know what the other thing about that clip that I love is when like she gets up and the bikini top's falling off. She's like, "Oh my god!" Like it's all falling off, and I'm just like, "There's no one else in the resort. Who's gonna
who
see
cares?
you?" Like,
It's just you.
I want to go to that resort where there's nobody at the pool. Like I want to go to this resort where it's like 2 people. You know, just like let's go to the deserted desert island resort. That looks fun to me.
That is great. All right, it's time to move on. I think we've milked that one for all it's worth. No pun intended. All right, next we're going to move on. We're going to talk about Platinum Games. Today, Platinum Games basically went on his Twitter feed and said, hey, fans, which of these 4 franchises do you want us to revive? And so what we're going to do first is we're going to talk about each of the 4 franchises and talk about our prospects of how we feel each one of them will be successful or not. And then we're both going to make our pick for which one we want to see revived. So the first game that we're going to talk about is Bayonetta. Matt, is Bayonetta dead in the water at this point? Obviously, Bayonetta 2 came out for the Wii U. It pretty much just tanked.
Yep.
There's not even really pretty much. It tanked.
I bought one.
Yeah.
I don't even own the system,
I bought it
but
too.
I bought one.
We're 2 of few.
Yeah.
It's pretty much the best way to
2
put it.
of too few, apparently.
I mean, is it just the platform it was on, which arguably I can understand that. You know, it is the Wii U, it's the younger demographic.
I mean, I don't think we know. I don't think there's a way to tell. But again, the first one barely sold enough to warrant a sequel, and it was mainly funded by Nintendo, as I understand it.
Well, yeah, because Sega refused to pick it up.
Yeah.
The sequel.
So probably Bayonetta is dead, I would say. And it also, like, Bayonetta 2 was pretty much Bayonetta 1 again.
Well, I mean, they're saying it's not dead. There's an opportunity for it to stay alive if the fans respond.
I don't know what else there is to do with that other than more of the same. And, if we're talking about, like, revive a dream Platinum franchise, Bayonetta is not on my list.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. I really enjoyed the first Bayonetta because I thought it was something really unique at the time. And I will say another thing, too, like...
Yeah, if you want to talk about games, although I have to say, I did enjoy the first Bayonetta, but you want to talk about games that I will turn off if someone else comes in the room.
Oh, yeah, it can be embarrassing.
And not even like the cheesecake kind of zooming through her legs thing, just like the constant playing of Fly Me to the Moon. Like, for some reason, just kept really kind of like, why is it, and like, my girlfriend went, why are they playing that song again? I was like, I don't know.
I'll say this much about this game. It has to be, I mean, the production values in the game are insane. Like,
yeah, it's really...
This has to be a game that had the most work done on it that failed the most miserably. Like, there's a lot of games that fail really badly, but ultimately it's because they suck.
Yeah, there is no
corners were cut on this game.
Yeah, no, this is both of the Bayonettas are super quality presentations, super quality games, like from top to bottom, gameplay, graphics, design, art design, everything.
In fact, maybe that's a good topic for another GameFace, is like the highest quality games that failed miserably.
No one cares about. Yeah.
Because this game is, both of them, top to bottom, high-quality games, great gameplay, which, I really enjoyed and had a lot of fun with.
When you play these games, you do not come off feeling like they're some kind of, like, B-list relic.
No.
They are not those games we talk about that are disappearing. It's just not catching.
It's just too wacky and too off the wall.
I guess
so.
I
never really resonated with the story or the characters much. Like, I really played it for the gameplay and the spectacle, I guess is the best way to put it. So I would agree with you. Like, I would not be heartbroken if I never saw another Bayonetta. I also feel like maybe by the end of the second one, like, they kind of milked it for all it was worth gameplay-wise, too.
Yeah, and again, like, while I would certainly play Bayonetta 3, if you're really talking about something that's going to be successful for Platinum, I don't think this is it.
I think that was just proven with the Wii U, despite the fact of the user base is on that platform.
Yeah, I mean, even by Wii U standards, I don't think that game sold well. And it included the first one. That was a really good deal.
I also feel like Nintendo kind of sent it out to die.
They buried it a little bit, yeah. Because also, the other thing is, like, I can't totally blame Nintendo for that, because it's like, how do you sell that game? Especially in this country. Like, I don't know how you present Bayonetta to an American audience, the audience that makes, like, Call of Duty a hit and Fallout a hit, and how do you get them to, like, jump onto that? I don't know how you do that.
Well, I think the other problem with it too is it kind of flies in the face of how Nintendo usually does things. It's like Bayonetta 2 is kind of like a contradiction to everything Nintendo does. They censor a lot of stuff. We had that conversation. Nintendo censor. Are they censoring it, or are
well, that's the other thing is, like, that is an interesting kind of comparison to where Nintendo came from. Where like for years and years and years, 8-bit, 16-bit, and I think somewhat into the 64-bit. Nintendo 64 era, they were, you couldn't show a cross. You couldn't show any religious imagery whatsoever.
A lot of religious.
And now one of their exclusives is a game where you go, like, basically fight your way through hell and heaven and confront God.
Right.
It's just like, okay, yeah.
That's what I'm saying. I think that's why they sent it out to die. I think they may regret that deal that they made for that game. All right, next we're going to talk about, here's a polarizing game, Beautiful Joe.
Mm-hmm.
Do you like Beautiful Joe, Matt?
I liked it.
I think that's the way
I always
a lot of people feel.
Whenever someone asks me about stuff like I feel like when someone asks you about like, oh, did you try my whatever and you didn't really want it to, you're like, I had some.
Yeah.
That's how I'm with Beautiful Joe.
It tasted okay.
I played some.
Yeah.
I liked it as an idea more than I liked it as a game. Because the other thing is like, Beautiful Joe is like, there's a lot of gameplay mechanics to it that like you got to really dig into to understand.
The game's hard as balls.
And I didn't have the patience for it at the time. I just never.
A lot of times, like aesthetic will help you overcome challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times, reward will help you overcome challenge. With a game like Bloodborne or Dark Souls, a lot of times the feeling that you get from completing something that's really challenging is enough to get you through the fight. But with Beautiful Joe, like, I never really cared for the character. I never really understood who or what the character was supposed to be. I mean, I feel like the Wonderful 101 is kind of in the same boat. Like, it's just this kind of a weird art style and these characters that are kind of hard to resonate with. And, like, Wonderful 101 at least had, like, a more of a gradual learning curve and difficulty curve. This game was just kind of hard right out of the gate. Like, after the first, like, 2 levels, like, it gets really complicated and really challenging. And so, it never sold well either, and they made 2 of those.
3 of them.
3 Beautiful Joes?
Well, there was a Red Hot Rumble. Right? There was it was like a party game kind of Smash Brothers-y sort of thing. Right.
But they made 2 proper ones. Yeah. Which still surprises me.
Platinum will give it a chance. Platinum doesn't give up.
I mean, look at this. It's like a dude with like a goat. It's really bizarre.
He's a big Power Rangers fan. A big Sentai fan, and and it's like his hero passes his powers on. It's like, I get it, but it's like, here's part of the thing is like there's a complexity to this game that like it's on the level of like an actual fighting game.
It is,
and I'm just not willing to delve that hard and long into something that's not required to beat another human being. It's like I'm really good at Beautiful Joe, and no one will ever know that.
Yeah.
It's like great. Yeah. I guess that might be a little different in this time of streaming. Like, if you stream Beautiful Joe,
somebody wants to watch you. See if you can beat it.
But like, I just never kind of, and it was on the GameCube. And
originally it was.
Yeah, and I just never.
But eventually it came to other platforms. But
yeah, that's true. But I forgot about that too.
Yeah. So I think we're both in agreement. Beautiful Joe's a no.
Wouldn't be my pick. No.
Yeah. All right. So the next one, Devil May Cry.
He might. He just might.
So obviously the last game was a huge departure. They just released the re-release of Devil May Cry 4, which is what we're seeing right now, which is like a remastered version of Devil May Cry 4, which just seemed to kind of disappear and never really make a bump in the sales. So
yeah, I don't know what you do with this game really. Here's the thing. I like Dante. I don't like all the games in the series. I actually didn't mind the reboot that
Ninja Theory
did. But Dante is very much a vestige of the 90s, I think, in a lot of ways.
Very 90s.
Even though
trench coat.
I mean, it comes from the first one was like 2001, 2002. But like, I think he's a cool of a past era, so I think you'd have to reinvent this on a level that just, and a lot of the people who remember those games remember them because they were so bad in terms of like the acting and the storytelling. And like they're just sort of, it's a relic in a lot of ways. And the gameplay saves it because the gameplay is always very good, especially 3. 3 is probably the best game of the series, I think. Just super.
Definitely not 2.
No. But like 3, 3 is the pinnacle where it just like means super, super skill based, intricate, like just. Like it was the counterpoint to Ninja Gaiden. Ninja Gaiden and that were kind of 2 opposite takes on the same sort of character action genre. and like you like one or the other better. I like Ninja Gaiden better, but
and I'd agree with that.
Devil May Cry 3 is still a great action game, and
both are hokey, by the way.
Oh, very hokey,
and have really bad stories.
Yeah, and I think Ninja Gaiden is one of the most disjointed, weird, kind of like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Like there's a city and a blimp made of electricity, and there's people with lasers and ninjas.
Turn your
and
brain off.
The sword can rule the world, but now there's a dragon made of bones. And it's like okay, what At least Devil May Cry is like, yeah, hell, there's demons and stuff's is coming for
Pizza.
you. You gotta beat him, and you gotta eat pizza. Yeah. Like it's like, all right, pizza, yeah, like Ninja Turtles, I get it, swords, right? Okay, here we go. Yeah, put pizza in Ninja Gaiden. I would really have a thing to hold on to there, I think. So I really like the characters and kind of all that stuff in Devil May Cry, but again, I would think maybe not reinvent it into the heroin chic version that like Ninja Theory did, because clearly people didn't accept that very well. But I think you got to change it somehow to make it palatable for 2015, because Dante is a relic.
He is. He for sure is. I agree with that. And even Devil May Cry 4, like, remember I reviewed that and I did not give it a good score. Man, did I ever get murdered for that. But
oh, it's a very dedicated fan base.
Oh, yeah. And that's the thing.
Because that's the other thing is like, and I think this is true of all these games we're mentioning, there's nothing else quite like it. There's nothing, like, if they don't make any more Devil May Cries, they don't make any Bayonettas, like, what do you play instead? Nothing. They don't make any,
Yeah.
I mean, like Metal Gear, basically you play other Platinum games.
Right. Like Revengeance. Yeah.
Yeah, like Revengeance. Or, it's just... I understand why people get so attached to these things, because like if they go away,
really like it,
if they really like it and they go
shot.
away, you're never going to get another one.
Yeah.
But like Devil May Cry, I don't know, because I don't know. Would I like to play another Devil May Cry that Platinum made? Yeah, absolutely. Do I think it would sell well? No.
I don't know about that.
I think it would probably sell better than the last two we mentioned.
Yeah.
But like it might sell better than the last two we mentioned combined.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know. I think probably it's their best shot at a hit.
All right, so let's move on to the last one, which is Okami.
And my favorite of all Platinums. I mean, they were Clover Studios when they made it.
Yeah.
But it's my favorite of all their
Eventually
games.
transformed into Platinum after they were purchased. And
yeah, but that is my favorite of their games.
Of all of them?
Yes. I think it's great.
I'd agree. It is a great game. Hands down. I think it's a game that anybody can appreciate, but few did. Mm-hmm. I think it was probably the worst selling of all of them.
It's got to be up there.
I don't know. That would be a close battle between it and Beautiful Joe.
Yeah, I mean, they tried a couple. They
re-released it. They re-released 3 times.
Yeah, I mean, they did the Wii version and with the IGN logo on the box art.
Right. Yeah.
And love it. That was one of my favorite.
So great.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, those of you that don't know, they actually mass manufactured the box art for the GameCube version.
The Wii version.
The Wii version. Sorry.
It came out on the GameCube,
IGN's
and then there
logo on the box art, because they had taken the image, which I still can't comprehend this.
It's amazing.
They had taken the image from IGN's website and then used that to mass produce the game.
They it wasn't fully there, so it had clearly been photoshopped in, but they clearly got the original image watermarked from IGN, and they never cleaned it out. It's right there in front of, like next to the dog's head, like it's almost dead center.
The original art.
You would think.
And
then
insane.
as a result, they they did all this apology stuff, and they sent out just these beautiful alternate cover, slipcase cover things for the case. I still have all of them. They're wonderful. I mean, totally worth the screw up with the IGN logo to get those beautiful covers for the Wii version. But that's the main thing I remember about the Wii version.
Yeah.
It's like that. And then they did an HD version for PlayStation 3, which is also beautiful.
It is gorgeous. And I mean, that's what I think anyone would agree with that. This game is absolutely beautiful. It has the whole paintbrush mechanic in there where you actually use is it a calligraphy
It's like
brush?
a calligraphy brush, a magic calligraphy brush. Yeah.
That you use to manipulate the environments and solve puzzles with. It's
super,
basically designed
super long.
it is. It's really long.
It's the game. You think it's over. Like you think you've played the length of a normal game, and it's like, oh, by the way, that was the prologue.
Yeah.
Like you're a third of the way through.
It's basically Platinum's take on Zelda.
It's very much a Zelda. At the time it came out around the time Wind Waker, and a lot of people were like, oh, it's better. It's a better Zelda game. Than Wind Waker. I don't know if I fully agree with that, but it is one of the best Zelda games ever made.
Yeah.
Even though it's not a Zelda game.
Yeah. Because people don't really try to make Zelda games, unfortunately.
And it's super charming. If you love dogs at all, you'll love this one.
Yeah, the art obviously is amazing.
Art's
the
beautiful.
Graphic style is incredible. It's
and you get your money's worth. Believe me, it goes on and on and on and on, but it never feels like they're just
Like it's dragging
running
on.
through the same stuff over. It's always something new.
Yeah, it does a great job of constantly. It's just like Zelda, of constantly feeding you new items and weapons that you can use. That's worked into the puzzles and the traversal, and it's a great game. So I think we can both agree that our favorite game of those four is Okami.
For sure.
But which one do you think they should make?
Devil May Cry.
Yeah.
I mean, selfishly, I want another Okami, but if in the best interests of Platinum's, pocketbook and shareholders, I'd say Devil May Cry.
I'd agree. I think it has to be Devil May Cry. And I think, honestly, basically you can go and vote right now on this on their Twitter page. So go do that and make your voice heard.
I mean, I'm still going to vote for Okami.
Tell us you hate us because we didn't pick Beautiful Joe or whatever. But I have a feeling when that poll's all tallied up, Devil May Cry will probably win the poll. Although the people will probably have a little write-in at the bottom that'll say, Original Dante or whatever. Because I feel like people do not want, a Reboot 2. They don't want DMC 2. They want Devil May Cry 5.
I just don't know if you can have a guy in a red trench coat going, "Slow down, babe." I don't know if this is really going to fly. He just seems like such a...
Well, here was the thing, too, about the reboot, is that, he eventually kind of transforms more into the old Dante as the game goes on. It's like, people just got all up in arms because he starts with, the dark hair and whatnot, but, he changes throughout the game to be a little more closely to, the original Dante anyway. So, I think it's got to be Devil May Cry.
Yeah.
I don't think any of those other properties, sadly, are viable financially.
I would agree with that.
I think all...
I don't want to agree with it, but...
I don't either, but I think all three of them would fail miserably. I think we're in total agreement on this. We both like Okami the best, but we both agree that Devil May Cry is the one that will financially make the most sense.
You can't always get what you want.
Yeah, unfortunately.
But if I was a shareholder, I would want them to do Devil May Cry of those four.
Yep. Just for the sheer fact that they already have 5 of them out there.
Yeah, and because I think it's the best. You have the best shot of attracting someone who hasn't played one of those games before. I don't feel like the others are going to pull you in.
Yep.
The way that if you do Dante right, if you do the design right, if you make it big and flashy and pretty and playable, which they will for sure. I think you'll get attention in a way that you wouldn't from the others.
All right. Let's move on to the last topic of the Big Six, and this is just a fun little topic that we like to do on our shows right before Thanksgiving. Again, something we used to do on Invisible Walls I wanted to bring over to GameFace. And basically this is just us giving thanks for awesome stuff for Thanksgiving. Obviously that's what the holiday is all about, is giving thanks for great things in your life. Matt, what do you want to give thanks for?
CD Projekt Red, the makers of The Witcher 3, and CD Projekt also runs GOG, which is a great alternate service, and I've gotten to play X-Wing and TIE Fighter and all these games I never thought I'd get to play on a modern system again.
Yeah.
So they definitely, those guys, those wacky Polish guys who did all these things that everyone said was impossible, make a massive multi-million selling action RPG series out of a book series no one's ever heard of outside of the Eastern Europe. They did it, going from Witcher 1 to Witcher 3. You see that it just got bigger and bigger and bigger. It's crazy, even with a 3 on the end of it. They still sold that many. You got to wonder if the guy who has been voicing Geralt all this time is Jesus Christ, what is going on? And he went from voicing this nothing English localization of some Polish RPG on PC to voicing nationally broadcast commercials for this game.
Yeah.
That's a crazy transition. And then their GOG stuff is fantastic and has let me play stuff that I didn't think I'd ever get to play again. And so they CD Projekt makes life better. And has this year for sure. I went back to Witcher 3 again.
Well, they've done everything right.
Yeah.
The initial game was great. Had a few bugs here and there, but I feel like a lot of people...
But they worked really, really hard to fix it.
Yeah, well, here's the other thing, though, too. I feel like people have been digging into The Witcher 3, way harder than it deserves. Because a lot of people, I feel like, are trying to rationalize, giving... Because you're starting to see, the Game of the Year conversations happening on podcasts right now. And I feel like a lot of people are trying really hard to rationalize why they would give Game of the Year to Fallout over The Witcher 3. And look, they could have a million reasons why they would. It could be they just like the subject matter of Fallout more than The Witcher. Witcher's
they really, really like Fallout 3.
Right.
That's the best reason to me.
Right, exactly. Which is fine. But I feel like people are trying to find ways to ding The Witcher 3. And so they keep bringing up all these bugs, and I'm like, you know what? I didn't really experience a whole lot of bugs.
Look, if you're trying to champion Fallout 4, let's not get
bugs
into a
is
bug
not
comparison.
a good idea. But that's what they're doing. When people are saying, well, it's kind of buggy, they're like, well, The Witcher 3 was really buggy. Like, that just seems to be like kind of their fallback.
Yeah, but The Witcher 3 is mostly fixed now.
It is, yeah.
It did have a lot of bugs, but they were, that thing is up to it's like 1.11 now. I mean, they put out tons of fixes.
Look, they gave away tons of free DLC. The stuff that you've paid for is worth it, and then some. Like, you nailed it. CD Projekt Red just did everything exactly right.
Everything right, and they do it with you and us in mind, with the customer in mind as best they can, and they extend that philosophy to GOG, and GOG is a great service that brings back stuff that like good memories and good times, and I'm glad they're there.
And they're not illegally sourcing keys.
Yeah, that's also nice. It's also good.
Unlike some of those other services out there. Yeah.
Well, because they own most of the stuff they put out.
Exactly.
That's the other thing, is they own their mistakes too. You remember the time they said that GOG was shutting down?
Yeah, I do remember that.
You're all going to have to download your stuff, and we're all going away, and it turned out to be, oh, actually, we were just announcing that. It says something that people forgave them for that.
Yeah.
Because for a lot of other companies, that would have been death.
Yeah. Cyberpunk 2077 in the works right now.
Yeah, hope so. I hope a new Witcher's down the line, or the new Witcher.
That may be a while.
Probably.
That's going to be a while.
Well, yeah.
We won't see it this gen, that's for sure.
But one day, there will be a new Witcher.
Yeah.
And I'll be glad to go back to that world, because I know they're going to take care of it.
Yep. That's a good pick, Matt.
So thank you, CD Projekt Red, for being you.
Yep. So it's very easy for me on Thanksgiving to thank the Sifters. From the bottom of my heart, I just want to thank all of you, especially the people who jumped in right at the beginning, because when I first started talking about the site, it was all conjecture and ideas, and in all honesty, when the site launched, it didn't have half of the stuff that it was supposed to have. Like, it didn't have the forum. It just, I'd made a lot of promises of things that were coming, and you guys believed in me, and you believed me, period. And, not only that, you put your money down. And, looking back now, here we are 6 months later, we just launched the forums, it took us a while to get the referral system going, all this stuff has taken way longer than I ever thought it would, and look, I feel awful about it, but at the same time, I've done everything I can to get it all done in time, but, you guys believed in an idea, and not only believed in it, you're willing to invest in it and put your money down, and I just, looking back now, the first rush of people who subscribed literally the day the beta ended, and you guys just put your cards up, and even going back and looking at that old Q&A thread that we launched and just seeing the enthusiasm from you guys, we wouldn't be sitting here right now if it wasn't for you guys. The money that you guys put down at the beginning, built a little nest egg for the site that helped us, fund a lot of things to be able to do this show every week, and it's just forever. No matter what happens to this site, I will always be in debt to you guys, and I will always appreciate what you did, believing in an idea that I came up with, and I hope ultimately that everything has kind of worked out the way that you hoped. I'm ultimately really happy with what the site's become. I'm more than happy with what the community has become. You guys have been incredible. Honestly, I think just this last week we had our first real argument on Sifted. I don't know if you saw it or not, but two guys just started going at it, and it was the first time I really saw.
Oh, I thought you meant us with the censorship thing.
No, no. That was just a spirited discussion. There was an on-site, two guys going after each other over and over, and
Okay, so that almost took a year, though. I mean, that was
it's been 6 months. Yeah,
that's a long time.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is that a lot of those concepts ended up working. Requiring a subscription so that people are invested in the community, so that they just don't come in and act like jerks because they don't care, because they don't have any skin in the game. So all that has worked, and I hope ultimately the site is honestly almost done. We have really almost reached completion.
Forum's going well.
The forums work great. There's still a bunch of features on the forums that are yet to come. User-to-user messaging, our private forums, crews are still on the way. Just little tweaks, but it's feature complete now, I guess is the best way to put it. All the features that I promised are pretty much in there at this point. And so I just want to thank you for your patience. I want to thank you for your forward thinking and for believing in the idea and me, in all honesty. I'll be 80 years old, and I'll always remember this. I'll be laying in my nursing home, someone will be feeding me through a tube, and I'll be like, those first people that believed in me, like, it's hard to put it into words, man, when you just come up with an idea and you go for it, and then you have people that believe in you. So thank you so much. I hope all of you guys have an amazing Thanksgiving and an amazing holiday season in general. But on Thanksgiving, it really makes you reflect on things, and it just keeps coming back to you guys. So thank you so much. I can't say it enough. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. I don't think my words would ever do it justice. So, you sifters rock. Bro fist. I think I just stole that from PewDiePie, maybe. I hope not, but I mean it from the bottom of my heart. So, we're going to wrap up the show with our trailer of the week. This week's trailer was way better than last week's, which was the bottom of the barrel, which was UFC Sports UFC 2. This week, it's the debut trailer for Valkyria Azure. I think that's how you say it. Azure Revolution, which is, if you guys remember, Valkyria Chronicles, which was like this awesome, like turn-based strategy game with this crazy, like watercolor, cel-shaded aesthetic, has a huge kind of niche. I don't know if I'd call it niche. It had a pretty big following.
Yeah. I know a couple people that think that first game is the best game ever made.
Well, that's a little bit much. But
it's strong, but like that's how much like the concept and the art style and everything in it can appeal to people. Yeah. It's a very appealing game.
Yeah, there are people who really love the original game. So here's the rub, though. This new game is actually different. It's like an RPG. I guess it's like an action RPG. I don't even know if it's even a turn-based game. They haven't released a ton about it yet. They did say today there's permadeath in the game.
What?
And then if one of your characters dies, it alters the story on down the road. So that's a pretty big deal. But anyway, I think this trailer is awesome. I think the game looks awesome. Here is its debut trailer. Roll it. We're not doing a deep dive today because we want to, for our special Thanksgiving episode, to answer as many questions as possible. So I actually reached out on social media earlier today on our Twitter feed and let you guys know we were doing this. So hopefully you guys have some questions ready. Matt, do you have one yet?
We got one from Dogface Pig, which is, what games do you expect to be announced in the next 11 days? VGA's has 10 world premieres, Jeff confirmed, and PlayStation experience can honestly be anything. And so what do you think? He's suggesting that maybe one of the VGA ones might be a Valve game. Wants to find out what Sony Bend is working on. It's probably time for a new God of War announcement. What do you think?
Sony Bend's game, definitely. It's got to be there. I mean, it's been in development for like 2 years now. I thought we would have seen it a long time before now. Jeff does a good job working with U.S. developers generally for a lot of the reveals for not just the Game Awards, but every show that he works on. I would say with 70% certainty, Sony Bend's game. I would also say maybe we get a glimpse at the Amy Hennig Star Wars game that they're working on at EA. Maybe a quick teaser or something along those lines. Timing's perfect. Battlefront's just released. The movie's coming out.
I think that's optimistic, but it would explain why they're starting to pop up in the media a little more.
See, Amy Hennig was just at that conference. She did all those interviews with Jade Raymond. Like, all of it's starting to align. EA's already said they want to have a Star Wars game out every year from here on out. It makes perfect sense. They show the first teaser at the Game Awards. A year later, it comes out. I think that's probably...
The timing makes sense. I guess it just depends if it's in a position to be seen.
Yep. I'm sure there'll be a ton of indie games unveiled for the first time at the Video Game Awards. Jeff does a good job with those groups as well, getting stuff in there. Jeff's also really good with Nintendo, so I wouldn't be surprised if you get another look at Zelda more than the 10 seconds
Yeah, I
we
would
just got from the
expect
Direct.
something Nintendo related for sure.
If I remember correctly, last year they had like the demo that they did where it was kind of like shot off screen with like Miyamoto sitting on a couch or whatever. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if we get more Zelda. I mean, I'm sure there's going to be something from Nintendo there. There always is. Jeff works really well with those guys. In fact, I think he actually produces some of their directs, believe it or not. He's like one of the producers behind some of the directs that they've done, some of the pre-recorded ones that they do. So yeah, obviously it's hard to predict much more than that based upon the fact that pretty much every game just came out and we're 6 months out from E3. But I wouldn't be surprised to see like another look at Rime, some of the more like low-key like PlayStation games that are coming out, like some of the more indie stuff, and I'd be really happy to see another look at Rime, to be honest with you. Maybe, I mean, Uncharted. I don't know if Uncharted will be at the Game Awards or if it'll be at PSX. Maybe both.
Yeah.
I mean, we're coming down. Here's the thing: we're coming down the home stretch for Uncharted now.
Yeah, it's only 4 months away.
And there's no other real big opportunity for them to really promote it. Yeah. So there's GDC in March. And that's pretty much it.
That's getting real close to the
And
wire,
you don't
though.
really blow out games like that at GDC. So I wouldn't be surprised if you see new Uncharted stuff at both PSX and at the Game Awards. So that's what I would say.
Cool. Helters asks, what do each of you predict GameStop's next move will be in light of their decline?
It may be too late.
Yeah.
Because here's the problem. They've missed the digital boat.
Yeah.
They were way too late to adopt it. They fought it way too long. They were going on record.
And now nobody thinks of them when it comes to digital stuff.
No. Well, you don't have to. That's the thing. If you like, I noticed on Pactor Factor, he was talking about it. It's like somebody was asking, one of the questions that they asked him was, you know, do you ever see Nintendo's games on Steam? You know, if they go third party or whatever, would you ever see Nintendo's games on Steam? And Pactor was right. He's like, no, because Nintendo already has the eShop, and every publisher can make their own marketplace where they don't let somebody else take a cut of it. So, yeah. Like, there's no reason to work with a GameStop for your digital distribution.
And of course, you know, they fought digital as hard as they did because most of their revenue comes from the used games, because that's where the profit margins are. And digital means that's gone.
Yep.
So you're going to, I mean, I think they're basically going to slowly starve to death over the next 10 years.
I'd agree. I mean, unless they have to make a major move. I mean, they would have to launch something that just kicks Steam's butt sideways.
Yeah,
I mean,
they would have to
create,
be the next
like,
Steam.
Which is really what they should be doing. Like, right now, they should be dumping all their money into creating the ultimate digital marketplace. I mean, the ultimate. I mean, everyone thinks Steam is awesome. And look, it's taken Steam... How many years has Steam been around now? 8 years?
2004, at least.
So 10, 11 years.
11 years. You know,
Look how long it's taken Valve, a great company, smart company, to build Steam into what it is now. So if you're asking GameStop to try to usurp that...
I mean, I signed up for Steam when Half-Life 2 came out.
Yeah?
To play Half-Life 2.
Yeah.
And then I think I didn't touch it again for like 4 years.
I think you're right.
You know, like it was. I mean, it took like...
Well, at first, people didn't even really know what it was.
No.
It's just like, okay, you're making me sign up for this.
And now, I think, you know, and there's a lot of smart stuff they've done, but now, I can't imagine Christmas without Steam.
Yeah, I know.
Like, the holiday sale is like part of my, like, holiday routine now.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
it's all part of that.
But going back to what you were saying as well, like, I don't think it was really worth touching for 4 or 5 years. Like, the service needed a lot of work, and so... I think that's where I'm getting the 8-year thing from. Is because that's probably where I came back to it, and it became a viable service that I actually wanted to use regularly.
But also, on top of that, it's like, no one ever distrusted Valve, really. You know, like, GameStop launching some kind of market service like that, I mean, everybody's already kind of skeptical about that company anyway, and we don't really like going there, but like we have to go there if you want certain pre-order bonuses or like whatever to sell your games off. You know, people need it for the trade-in value idea because like you know, it's just I don't know how they evolve to survive what's coming.
They waited too long. They waited too long, and not only that, they went on the record like fighting digital, like saying it was never going to happen. It was a bad idea. People want physical games. I mean, look, I'll be honest with you. Like, I'm shocked at how much digital is caught on.
Yeah,
like,
I'm shocked at how much digital I buy.
I don't.
Like,
I honestly don't buy any digital, which is why I can't believe how much it's caught on.
I mean, I've bought several games digitally that like, and part of it's just being lazy, but like part of it is like part of it's also like lazy on the level of like, oh, if it's like a multiplayer, like Battlefront, I bought that digitally so I wouldn't have to put a disc in every time I want to play. because I'm playing other things at the same
Right.
time. I don't want to
Yeah.
take what I'm playing and put in that, and then take that out and put it. It's faster if I can just go. Oh, I'll just jump in and play a little bit.
Right.
And like, there's been several games I've had pre-orders on at GameStop that I ended up buying digitally because I didn't feel like going to their stupid
Just go in
midnight
and pick
launch
it
thing.
up.
And I was going to get to play it sooner because it went live at 9 p.m. Pacific.
Right.
And so, and eventually GameStop did change that policy, and now they sell it at 9 here.
Yeah.
Because it goes live at midnight
Right.
Eastern. But still, there's points where I'm like, well, I could drive there, wait in line for like 40 minutes, and like get the thing, and then drive home and play it, or I could play it at
Now.
9.
Yeah.
And
Although, how did that work out for you for Battlefront?
Battlefront was a problem.
You got burned.
But now I know to always pick up a physical copy of an EA game.
Right, there you go. So yeah, I would say the prospect, I mean, if I had GameStop stock, I would sell it. I guess that's the best way to put it. And it looks like a lot of people have, like...
Yeah, so your official answer from Shane, bail out.
Yeah, sell the stock, get out of there.
Danny Endurance says, what new IP from this year needs a sequel the most? Let me think of new IPs this year.
Yeah, they're not easy to think of, are they?
That's
That's a good question.
It is.
Transformers Devastation.
That's not an
I would like
IP.
to... Well, it kind of is.
It's a new take on an old IP. I think there is. I mean, I think they've got another couple sequels lined up for that, from what I read.
Splatoon is a good one.
I think that's a given. Yeah.
I mean,
I wouldn't be. What was that? That strategy game that Nintendo put out on a 3DS that bombed?
Project Steam.
Project Steam. I wouldn't mind seeing them take another crack at that.
I don't know.
I like the steampunk Abraham Lincoln fighting robot thing. That's up my alley.
It's pretty bizarre. I think, yeah, I mean, Splatoon is definitely a given, but I think
Yeah.
he's asking, like, which ones would we like to see? And
I'd
that's-
like to see. I haven't played enough of it really, but I would like to see more done with Until Dawn.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's a good one too.
Mm-hmm.
Life is Strange. I'd love to see a sequel to that. I don't know really where they take the story. They kind of put the cap on it, no matter which.
Maybe just another something in that vein that could possibly be like maybe not like a sequel directly, but like another story in that universe kind of idea. I don't know how you even do that, but it's like, like Twilight Zone, like an anthology series sort of thing.
New IPs, though, there aren't very many.
There's not a lot.
The
Order.
Yeah, the Order.
1886.
There we go. What else? They're really... Everything was like a sequel this year, every big game.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just the way it is anymore.
And a lot of stuff that I played that's like new IPs are like early access Steam things that aren't even done yet.
Yeah.
So I can't really say I
mean,
want
there's tons
a
of
sequel.
indie stuff, obviously.
Yeah.
But as
like
far as big budget new IP, there just isn't a bunch.
Yeah. Like I would like to see a follow-up to... I've been playing a game called Rebel Galaxy on Steam.
Yeah.
Which is like... It's very Firefly-ish in terms of like... It's got a lot of like kind of country western sensibility to like a space sim sort of thing. It plays like Assassin's Creed's ship combat. So it's like broadsides and like capital ships and stuff. But I don't think it's actually finished. So like asking for a sequel seems a little premature.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I could go on and on about indie games. There's dozens of indie games.
But in terms of like
sequels
major
to.
new IP, trying to think of things I played this year. That
Here's the thing: all the new IP hasn't really turned out to be all that great. So
yeah.
a lot of it's coming next year. A lot of the new IP, like as far as like big budget new IPs, are coming next year. And that's generally how it works. Like the first year, they get all the sequels out there because they're known quantities. They want people to buy the consoles, and then they kind of start experimenting a little later.
Bloodborne.
Yeah.
I mean, that's still kind of Dark Souls, but like...
Well, I think they just said this week that there's not going to be a sequel to Bloodborne.
No.
And actually, they said they're ending, like, all the Souls Bloodborne games.
Well, 3 is still coming.
Right. After that's out. Like, that's the last one is what they're saying now. We'll see.
We'll
see whenever their stockholders
I believe
start
that when it
asking for
doesn't happen.
sales.
Yeah.
But I think, honestly, probably Bloodborne, if you were to ask most people, would be the game everyone would want a sequel to. Just personally, I'm not a huge fan of it, so...
Will we be getting a new episode of Pact or Factor over the holiday weekend? Asks Ian Esquire.
Yes, there'll be a new episode of Pact or Factor going up this Saturday, and we're actually shooting and I'm glad you brought that up, we're shooting a new round of episodes of Pact or Factor next week. So there's actually a thread in the forums right now where people are brainstorming questions to make sure we get really good ones. But you can just follow the instructions on the show, and you can ask them through Twitter using the hashtag. We're also going to put up an article here in the next couple of days to ask you guys for questions. So New round of shows filming next week, and so you'll be able to find a lot of ways to ask your questions on the site. So don't worry about that. And here's one: following the retail sales of video, and this is from Petamil. Following the retail sales of video games on VG charts, which isn't accurate, by the way. I just figured I'd let you know that. It seems like game sales are going down year over year. How much do you think the digital sales are eating at the retail?
Decent.
A lot.
I mean, yeah, it's not like more than I think retail expected it to.
Well, today, GameStop, here's something funny. Today, GameStop says that it was Halo 5, Syndicate, and Battlefront. They said all 3 games sold less than they expected at retail. And then 2 hours later, EA puts out an announcement that says Battlefront was its best-selling digital game ever.
Wow.
So I think the proof's in the pudding right there. That answers like the whole question.
Maybe a lot of other people are too lazy to change the disc just like me.
A lot. Because they're saying, hey, we have really bad sales for these games we thought we were going to get good sales from. And then EA says, well, yeah, because we sold a ton on digital. So a lot. And a lot more than I would have thought. And a lot more than I definitely would have thought if you'd asked me that question like 2 years ago. So, yeah, I think it's taken a huge dent out. Good question.
Sublevel 28 wants to know what's your wish for a Yule gift?
For what?
Yule, Christmas gift.
Oh, what do I want for a
Christmas gift? What do you want for
gift?
Christmas?
I'm to the point where like I don't really want anything, man. I have everything I need. Like I'm not really.
Isn't there anything like big and stupid that you wouldn't buy for yourself that you want?
A house. Like that's all that I've left.
That's not stupid.
Yeah, I mean, a house. I don't own a house. I'm at the age I'm at, and I still live in an apartment. And like houses are so expensive in LA. Like I honestly just don't know if I'll ever be able to afford one.
I really want a garage.
Yeah, I mean, well, that kind of comes as part of the house.
That's what I mean. I have a garage. I put my car in my apartment building, but I'm like, I mean, like a big room where I can put boxes.
Yeah,
like that's. I mean, you want storage.
Yeah. I mean, I honestly don't buy anything anymore. I really don't. Like, I buy where like I'm at the point in my life where I'm like the guy that just wants like underwear and socks for Christmas. Like, I wear out like the few pairs of jeans I wear. I get a new pair of jeans. Like, I'm lucky in a lot of ways. I have all the consoles I want. I have a nice TV. I have a decent surround sound system. I'm really simple. Like,
I'm putting some Lego sets on my list, I think.
Yeah, I have a decent car. Things. Like, I don't know. I'm pretty simple, man. I'm pretty happy to please. Here's what I want for Christmas. I want
unless you're a game developer.
Right. I want Sifted to go off. I want Gifted to do really well over the holidays. That's what I want for Christmas. I want subscribers to really build. That's really all I care about, other than my wife, is Sifted doing well. So I guess that's my one Christmas wish. Justin Horman, if you were to construct a robot to be the CEO of a game company, how would you have it educated, and what experience would you like it to have? Marketing, programming, etc. A CEO of a gaming company, I would just want him to be a gamer. That's it. I think that's hard. That's too much to ask for now. I think it's really hard. Like, I really want people who are a part of the industry with me and have been for the last 20 years or whatever to start taking over these roles. Because right now you have a bunch of old fuddy-duddies doing these jobs that don't play games. And the sooner those people can get out, the better it's going to be for all of us. Because they're going to understand games. They're going to understand what the players want. They're going to care what the players want. They're not going to be, fuddy-duddies. They're like, I know what's best for this company. I think Pachter caught a lot of crap because he was very vocal about his dislike for what Iwata did as a CEO. Liked the guy personally and thought he was a great guy, but didn't feel like he made the right decisions for Nintendo. And look, Iwata wasn't that old, obviously. He died young. But still, he was kind of like the old boys club at Nintendo. He had been there for a long time. And I just feel like we need fresh blood in the industry in general. And the fresh blood is the perspective of people like us who, more than anything, like if I didn't have this job, I'd still be doing the same crap I do every night, which is playing frickin' video games until I fall asleep with the controller in my lap. Like, it's never going to change. I've been doing it since I was 4 years old with an Atari 2600. Like, it's who I am. And so I feel like people like that need to be in charge and in power at the highest levels. And the business part, you can hire somebody to handle. You can hire a CFO to handle the finances. I just feel like you need that passion for actually playing video games. because then you'll guide the company on the right path for the other people who have that same passion.
I'd agree with that. So would Bing Gordon.
This is from Helters? Is this right?
Helters, yeah.
With Sony announcing PS2 backwards compatibility for the PS4 and Xbox 360 to X1, how do you think this will affect remakes and remasters?
Not much.
Well, I don't know.
I don't know if that's going to really catch up to itself very quickly because, like, you're still not improving them when you're doing backwards compatibility, really. Yeah. And even, like, I mean, Gears of War, like, if you got the Gears of War remaster and you played it before, like, December 4th or something, then you got Gears of War 1, 2, 3, and Judgment backwards compatibility downloads for free.
Right.
Why are you giving me Gears of War 1?
Yeah.
Like, when I already have a better version of Gears of
Right.
War 1 to play, you know, it's just like, it's just a thing. You know, I guess people enjoy having the disc and...
I think it could affect it, though,
there you go.
Matt.
It could, but, like, what
I think some publishers are going to look at it like, why will we bother spending all this money on this if they can just play it? Sure, it may not look quite as good as the remaster.
Right, but my problem is, like, my only problem in that regard is, like, I think that is going to be EA's excuse for not remastering Mass Effect, which I would absolutely play a remastered Mass Effect series, and, like, EA says they don't do that. They don't do remasters. We want to look forward.
We'll see how that goes.
But, like, I mean, you're leaving money on the table if you don't remaster the Mass Effect trilogy for modern systems, I think.
Yeah.
But, like, instead,
I
think
also have Andromeda coming, so...
True, but what better way to build hype for Andromeda than to say, like, hey,
it's too late now. Well, actually, who knows? They could probably
you could
scrap that together real quick.
You could throw that thing out in July next year in the summer drought.
You're probably right.
It'd be great.
And then put out Andromeda in Q4 or whatever.
Right.
Okay.
Here's one. Playland MX says, are you going to do anything else with Mr. Pachter? I like him answering questions, but would love to watch him on a more freestyle kind of show, like when he was a guest at Bonus Round.
That's interesting. We were just actually pitched an idea, and I can't talk about it too much. I'm not actually under an NDA, but out of respect to the people who pitched the show to us, I'm not going to divulge too much about it, but we were pitched another show idea where I don't know how much I can say. It's a possibility, I guess, is what I can say. Some people have seen Pachter's show and love him and have not a vested interest, but they would like to see him do more. Mm-hmm. And they would like us to produce whatever it is that he does more under the same model that we have now, where it would premiere on Sifted and then be free on YouTube like a week or two later. So there's a possibility. We're still trying to figure out. I mean, Pachter's a really busy guy. Like,
it's a dance competition show, I'll just tell you.
Pachter's really busy, and it's hard to just find time to shoot our show. And so doing another one might be a little tough. And so we have to figure out if, like, you guys would care about it, first of all, because it's not a dance show. I know you would watch a dance show with Pachter. So
I would.
There's some stuff going on behind the scenes right now with Pachter and another show idea. So that's pretty much all I can say right now.
Danny Endurance wants to know, which game development team that has shut down would you resurrect?
Huh.
I would resurrect Team Andromeda, which was the old Sega team that made the Panzer Dragoon games.
I would resurrect Westwood.
That's a good one.
You just go down the list for all those.
Everything EA's ever closed. We'll just I would say actually there's a lot of old Sega teams I would resurrect. I would resurrect Wave Master, the sound design team, and the music team, and the
AM2.
old AM2, Hitmaker, all those old Sega teams.
Sadly, Sonic Team still exists.
In some form. Some shambling zombie.
That's the one that should have been shut down. That's the ironic part.
Yeah.
What else? I think that's a pretty good list.
Overworks, yes. Case Money, that's a good pick. Overworks.
Yep. Joe Thor 84. Did Jonathan Blow's game ever come out? Nope.
Not yet.
I'm assuming you're talking about The Witness.
Slated for January right now.
It's pretty close, yeah. They just put you can find it on Sifted. There's like an environmental flyover that they just put out this week, showing off kind of like the terrain in the game. But yeah, it's coming. It's like January. It's like a month away or 2 months away, so it should be here soon. Let's just answer two more if there are two more.
SMC92ian says, if you could make any game no limit or budget, what would it be?
Oh boy. I've talked about this before. I generally want games set in different cultures. Like, I'm tired of like the military, whatever, the adventurer. So one thing I've always brought up is like a game set in the rave scene, where you're interacting with promoters and DJs and you're traveling all over the world and kind of navigating that whole environment. And then
you wanted a game tie-in to We Are Your Friends.
Right.
Yeah. Big bomb of a movie earlier this year. No one saw it. Don't feel bad.
And I'm sure this game would totally bomb, by the way. Like, this isn't a game I would make to, like, make money. This is just a game that I think would be interesting, and I think a certain segment of people would find interesting. There's that game. I also have a concept for, and may offend some people, but an animal fighting game. Literally, where you fight like dogs and like chickens.
It's kind of Tokyo Jungle.
It is a little bit.
Sense. Like, I mean,
this was an idea
that would be all in the setup. I think, as long as it wasn't like Michael Vick in a ring, I think you could.
Well, basically, my whole idea, and I don't care. I'm never going to make it, obviously, because I'm not a game developer, and I probably never will be. But the whole concept was that you played the human with the left stick, and then you had the pet on the right stick, and then you used the 4 shoulder buttons. And this probably wouldn't work. And having played a lot of games, I pretty much guarantee it wouldn't work. But that's pretty much all the controls, and then the varying degrees that you hit the stick alters the attacks for each one. So the 2 buttons on the left are the 2 attacks for the human, and then the two shoulder buttons on the right are the attacks for the pet. So it would be either the dog or a chicken or whatever. And then the world kind of scrolls at you, and you kind of control these 2 separate beings with the sticks while the enemies in the world kind of rushes at you. It sounds crazy. And it's like, I don't know if you would necessarily fight like your dog against somebody else's dog, but it's kind of like a human plus their pet, like, versus the world, possibly versus other humans versus pets. I know that sounds insane. That's the type of stuff I think about, though.
Yeah. I would make...
I like that.
Yeah, sure. The game that's been in my head for a long time is I would make a big open world, like I'm talking like Just Cause size.
If you guys make that game, by the way, you got to pay me royalties.
Sued.
Be honest.
Just Cause size kind of open world game, except it would be set in feudal Japan. It would be ninjas. It would be like Tenchu, but the original Tenchu games, but open world.
Interesting.
Just because I feel like I like open world stuff, but I feel like it's all too modern, and I would love to play a game like. I mean, Witcher kind of has a little bit of that, but I would love to play a game that like plays like the stealth and brutal violence techniques of Tenchu, but with the kind of open freedom and sort of and also like really researched, like historically, architecturally sound kind of like recreation of Japan in like.
So it's a little bit like Yakuza, but in feudal Japan.
Feudal Japan, Yakuza, except more. I mean, Tenchu is really the touchstone on that because I love Tenchu or the old Tenchus, and I wish it was still around.
I remember the Tenchu on the original PlayStation was some good stuff. All right, one last question before we got to go.
Favorite movie of the year so far? I don't know. I would have to think about that.
Yeah, I don't know what it would be. I honestly don't watch a ton of movies.
I haven't seen any real movies in the theaters since like July. Like I just kind of fell out of it.
Yeah, I don't go to the movies hardly at all anymore. And I've been watching so much TV. There's so much good TV now. Like I don't have to watch a ton of movies. And like nothing's really come across where someone's like, you need to see this. I mean, I guess I would say, did Ex Machina come out this year?
Yeah, it did.
That's it. Yeah.
That's a good pick.
That's my favorite movie I've seen this year. You got one?
Not really.
Hopefully it's Star Wars.
Yeah, I hope it's Star Wars. That'd be nice.
That's what we're praying for.
I thought it was going to be Avengers, but it wasn't.
Yeah, definitely not.
I actually liked Ant-Man better than Avengers.
Wow. And Fantastic Four was terrible.
I didn't even see that. Much like the rest of the world.
They just canceled the sequel. So
yeah, give it back to Marvel.
Yeah. All right. So that's gonna do it for GameFace 31.
Like Goji Gogo says, I would make a volleyball game. I hear there's an untapped market.
Yeah, there we go. Good one, man.
Points awarded.
Yeah. Plus
Reincorporation's the foundation of humor. I like that.
All right. Well, thanks everyone. Thanks everyone for the false alarm. I know it was a pain in the butt. You guys all jumped on the stream, and then we were like, no, we're not ready yet. And then we streamed anyway, and you guys all came back. So thank you very much for that. If anyone is like watching this or listening to this while they're traveling with their family to Thanksgiving dinner or whatever, we're very privileged to feel like we're a part of that with you guys. We do look at you guys as a little bit of our family. And so we always hope that you guys have a great Thanksgiving and a safe Thanksgiving, and you get to spend it with the people that you love and care about, and hopefully we're included in that group. So everybody have a great and safe holiday. Like I said, look out. I'll be streaming, maybe lonely streaming over the next few days. But this is just kind of the period that I have now with a little bit of downtime with everybody else kind of taking some time off. So
you should play Dynasty Warriors. You should stream Dynasty Warriors.
No.
I always that was a thing. I always tried to think of like the saddest game to be stuck playing alone on a holiday. I think it's Dynasty. I think it's playing.
That's a good one. People will tune in the stream and I'll just be hanging from the ceiling, just my legs just swinging back and forth.
Don't follow Lubu. Yeah. Don't follow Lubu.
It will not be Dynasty Warriors, but I will be back in here streaming over the next couple of days. I hope you guys can join me. If you can't, I totally understand, and we will do highlights of the hangout, and they will be archived to the site. So once again, everyone have a great, safe, and happy Thanksgiving. We'll see you back here next week. GameFace is up and out.